and welcome to NXTGEN Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the season finale of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup Season 3, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing and powered by Doble Motorcycles. That's right folks, 8 rounds have been completed and now we are at round 9 of 9 and we are back to where we began the season all those many weeks and months ago, as we made our way all the way back to the Garden of England, to the Kent countryside, and for the one and only Brands Hatch circuit. However, whilst we may have started the season at the Indy course in round number 1, we've decided to switch things up and extend out the circuit to its full length, and we're going to be seeing our drivers do battle today around the full Grand Prix layout of the Brands Hatch circuit, and what is expected to be a 2.3 mile thriller lap after lap. With its 9 corners, all medium to low speed, and with it extended straight, at least these Legends machines, it is going to be a circuit where the battles are going to run right from start to finish, lap after lap, and he will be kept guessing all the way to the final checkered flag, as our drivers look to do battle and be crowned champion. But as we get ready to go racing today and see who will be crowned our Season 3 Legends Cup champions, we're welcoming you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side, and you're tuning in right now via one of 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you can be tuning in via one of the official NXTGEN Racing media channels. They do include, of course, YouTube. If you go to youtube.com and search for NXTGEN Racing, we welcome you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube, and I hope you're all doing well and all set for a fantastic evening in racing action. Alternatively, you could be tuning in via Facebook, and that's at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Facebook. We, of course, do have a third broadcast platform available. It's the unofficial broadcast available on Twitch, and that's at twitch.tv/TX1, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But regardless of what platform you're tuning in via, you get the same broadcast on all 3, and in the commentary booth you have me. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX1, or Britain and Split, depending on what media you follow me on. Now I bring you all your racing action as it unfolds and comes to a conclusion today. But speaking of today, what's our schedule for today? Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 18 minutes time, we're making our way into our final qualifying session of the season. 15 minutes in duration, all the drivers out there looking to give it their all, and come the end of it, we'll see who'll stand tall and come away victorious. Albeit, victory is not going to be just settled off of the qualifying session, it'll also be off of our 3 races, and victory may only go for a slender margin before we get to race number 1, because in the opening race, 15 minutes in duration, all the drivers will be out there giving it all from 8:15 this evening. After which we'll take a brief breather before returning for race number 2, and that will be due to get underway at just before 9 o'clock this evening, and then we rinse and repeat before heading into our very last race of the season, race number 27 of the calendar, and that will be race number 3, 25 minutes in duration. Our feature race due to get underway just before 9:45 this evening, and after that we will be crowning our provisional champions. But with our scene set here, let's talk about the history and how we've got to this point and where the championships stand after 8 rounds of racing. For as we can see, today is the 19th of August, and we started all the way back on the 13th of May, here where we're going to end, and it was always a consideration when we'd start the season that we'd end where we began, and the Brands Hatch Indy circuit proved to be a very feisty one in the season opener, where it was young Isaac Doble who absolutely dominated the way ahead of his peers. But when the clock forward 2 weeks, then we made our way to Norwich, and with it we saw our drivers take on the Norfolk County circuit of Snetterton. The 200 layout there on the 27th of May saw Nick Clibbens and Stuart Wyness do brilliant battle over the course of the Pram class, and indeed taking the first Pram overall wins of the season. And meanwhile in the Pro class and overall, it was none other than Adam Delmont striking back versus Isaac Doble. In round number 3 at Knockhill International on the 10th of June, well there, things were completely shuffled up and down the field as you would like, and it was anybody's guess who was going to take victory there in Scotland, before we saw a little bit more certainty at the Silverstone National Circuit on the 24th of June. Well there we did get to see Adam Delmont deliver quite well, and also we got to see Track Scotland run rampant in the Pram class, albeit Nick Clibbens trying to get stuck in where he could. And then round number 5, we made our way all the way up to the northeast of England for the Oulton Park circuit, and on the 8th of July we got to see many of our drivers drivers tried to go absolutely boldly when they would go too wide into many of the corners of Cadwell Park. Some, however, coming off worse than others, and in particular we did have a very slow roll for one of our iRace esports machines, and also we got to see Mark Hughes there do some brilliant battling, and our big star of the show was none other than Kieran Sharp from the Sim Racing Collective, who absolutely dominated proceedings up front. In round number 6 on the 15th of July, well, we carried on the theme of a sprint triple header in terms of the mid-portion of the season, because the Thruxton circuit played host for round number 6, and in the peak of the summer there, we got to see our drivers take on the fastest circuit in the United Kingdom in full force and endeavour, albeit with some very challenging conditions during the summer. And then on the 22nd of July, it was the Oulton Park National Circuit that saw us bring the curtain down on our mid-season triple header, and we got to see some absolutely superb battles there with a return to the grid of Isaac Doble, and he took the fight to Adam Delmont, and Adam Delmont continuously tripping himself up in the hunt for his maiden NXTGEN Racing Championship crown. And last time out was the Oulton Park International Circuit that played host to our drivers, and what a round that was, as all the drivers all went into the circuit looking to go absolutely brazen as best they could, and we got to see some absolutely superb battling action between them all over the course of the 3 races there. And well, from that we now come into today, and now the 19th of August we're getting set to see how it all comes to a close. But heading into this round then, well, how did the championship stand after 8 rounds of racing? Here we can see this is how they stand. Begin with the overall drivers championship, and in the top of the tower it is Adam Delmont on 477 points, 77 clear of Kieran Sharp. Adam Delmont, technically it's a formality unless he was to have an absolute nightmare of a day where he'd have to retire from all 3 races, or at least retire from 2 of them and score very poorly in the final race. Well, Kieran Sharp would then take the crown off of him. However, that is a very low probability, albeit Adam Delmont has not been prone to mistakes or problems this season, but we get the feeling that all he needs to do is finish well in race number 1, and he will be crowned your provisional Season 3 Legends Cup overall Drivers' Champion. For Kieran Sharp then, it's all about now, nothing to lose, and he'll go for it every step of the way tonight. Meanwhile, in the battle for third, it's the close fight, 5 points separating them, and Nick Clibbens versus Stuart Wyness to be in the highest placed Pro-Am driver come the end of the season, the overall Drivers' Championship. The fight for third is well and truly on, and Kieran Smart a little bit further back with recent results found wanting, and therefore has not clicked together. So it does mean as a result now, Kieran Smart sits in a bit of no man's land in terms of chasing down the top 4. However, he's got good company behind him, because Jamie Dorey sits in 6th on 268 points, the best part of 46 clear of Andrew Pike. Isaac Doble, Nigel Stock and Alan McCain complete your top 10 with only 6 points between the bottom 2 of the top 10, but behind McCain it's a further 6 points to Matthew Cheverton, who is ahead by 7 of Benjamin Gregory. Jack Pitters, as he continues to fight his way forward, sits in 13th place. He's absolutely been a star of the second half of the season, particularly at Thruxton, where we got to see some very bold moves from the pro debutant, and Sam Bradley sits in 14th place, a further 14 points behind. Lewis Mason sits 15th as his form continues to rise up through the ranks, and he's ahead of Lee Horn and Sam Smith, both on 72 points based on result countback. However, it's Lee Horn ahead of Smith, and Phil McDougall, Duncan Mariah and Ben Altrier complete your top 20. Outside the top 20, not to be forgotten about, we have Toby Cole, 21st and back on the grid today. He's 3 points ahead of Mikey Doble, with Gavin Gardner, Thomas Delaney and Michael Lees completing your top 25. And then in 26th, it's Dan Mould, 7 points ahead of Cole Thompson, with Lewis Delmont, Mark Hughes and William Kurtler completing your top 30. Outside the top 30, let's not forget about them. Those with points: Callum Murray, Matthew Williams, Jonathan Berry and Fraser Ostent. And yet score any points: Wayne Douglas, Mark Sykes, Ian Manners, Dylan Hunter and Josh Brown. But if the story at the very top of the overall Drivers' Championship is almost concluded, what about in the Pro-Am class? Well, when the points are adjusted, you can see it's not quite as clear-cut or concluded, because Nick Clibbens leads currently by 26 points over Stuart Wyness. That is practically a win's worth of points at this point, and Nick Clibbens has proven to be the most consistent out of the trio over the course of the season, if he hasn't always proven to be the fastest. However, Stuart Wyness has pushed very hard in the last couple of rounds to make sure he's still well and truly in the hunt. However, some of the push has come back to haunt him every so often, and that's why he's quite a way away. And a further 26 points behind is Kieran Smart. We still have a three-way fight between our top 3, separated by 52 points in totality, but right now Nick Clibbens is the favourite, with Stuart Wyness having an opportunity, and Kieran Smart would need his 2 rivals, including his Track Scotland teammate Stuart Wyness, to have a difficult round in order to be able to snatch this away from the pair. So you can understand if Kieran Smart might be rear a gunner to Stuart Wyness today, but he'll be keeping an eye out for an opportunity, and Nick Clibbens, meanwhile, will know all he's got to do is finish this race as well. Nigel Stock sits in 4th on 287 points, not close enough to change the top 3, and 50 points clear of Alan McCain. It looks like the fight for 4th is wrapped up there, but 5th place is under threat with McCain only 10 points ahead of Lewis Mason, who's definitely finding his pace. Phil McDougall, Sam Smith, Duncan Wright and Sam Bradley complete your top 10, with the 4 drivers there in close contention for 7th place, and Thomas Delaney then sits a further 52 points behind in 11th, best of the rest, 20 points ahead of William Kurtler. Matthew Jordan only a further point behind. Toby Cole is in 14th place ahead of Mark Hughes now by 4 points, as both of them do battle further down the ranks. Then we have Carl Thompson, Michael Lees, Cal Murray and Mark Seitz completing your Pro-Am Drivers' Championship standings. Coming to our circuit for today then, well, it was of course the revised layout of the circuit. Originally on the schedule, we were planning to come back to the Indy circuit as where we started. However, thanks to an agreement between the admin team and the organiser of the circuit, we've been able to go to the full extent of the Grand Prix circuit, much to the dislike of the local residents of West Kingsdown. However, they have made allowances, of which this circuit, of course, located near the village of West Kingsdown in the county of Kent in England, the United Kingdom. And a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just for the simulator, but also the superb track maps that come within it. 9 corners, 2.3 miles, and a circuit layout which really has stood the test of time in the United Kingdom. Indeed, a much-loved circuit for all the right reasons, with plenty of elevation changes, medium speed and low speed corners, and straights which are normally short, but in these Legends cars, they are plenty long enough to give our drivers plenty of opportunity to use the slipstream to do battle. And of course, the run from turn 4 to turn 5 coming out of Surtees and all the way into Hawthorns, that extended straight there is going to give our Legends machines an absolutely huge opportunity to go 2, perhaps even 3 wide by the time they get to Hawthorns. But in terms of a lap around here, we'll get 1 or 2 on board in qualifying, but to do well around here, our drivers will need to make sure they carry the speed from corner to corner, because the charge across the start-finish line will see them go up to Paddock Hill Bend at turn number 1, the highest point in the circuit. They'll drop down through there and go uphill into Druid's Hairpin at 2, before they come sweeping back downhill into Graham Hill Bend at turn number 3. Then they'll make their way up towards Surtees Bend at 4, but whereas they would normally go left into right, instead it's purely a left-hand corner, and that's where the Grand Prix loop begins. As they make the way out of the late apex turn number 4, they'll head all the way down Pilgrim's Drop and up in towards Hawthorns at turn number 5. Through there on the GP loop, it is going to be 4 right-handers back-to-back, with turns 5, 6 and 6A and 7, known as Hawthorns, Westfield, Dingledale and Sheen. But as they come out of Barry Sheen Curve, they'll make their way into the left-hander of Stirling's at turn number 8, a very narrow sequence of corners as well, even these Legends machines, and then onto the backstretch they'll go, and through Clearways and Clark Curve at turn number 9 to complete lap and do it all over again. As for our rules, because we of course can't go racing without them, this is a fixed setup series with setups provided to our drivers ahead of each and every round. Driver classes, they were finalised as the conclusion of round number 3, and in terms of how our grids will be set, the race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying, that's a given. The race 2 grid, meanwhile, shall be set as a top 15 reverse grid based on results of race number 1, so whoever takes victory in race 1, they start 15th for race number 2, and we continue to flip the top 15 finishing order until our 15th place finisher in race 1 starts on pole for race number 2. Those who finish 16th and downwards, that's exactly where they start in race 2. The race 3 grid, meanwhile, shall be a full reverse grid based on results of race number 2 for all drivers who finished the race. Those who are non-classified, well, they will be started at the very back of the field behind the race winner of race number 2. Each driver shall have 1 fast fare available in each race should they need it, and there's no pit stops expected. Race stewarding is in effect as well, when independent race directors steward in the races for track limit infringements and the deployment of the safety car, and the track limit infringement penalties are as follows. First and second warnings, there's no penalty. On the third, it's a 5-second post-race time penalty that's doubled to 10 on the 4th warning, and on the 5th warning, you've earned yourself a drive-through penalty that must be served within 3 laps. Race instance, meanwhile, shall be reviewed post-round. Well, that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're all here for the racing, so let's head back to the circuit side as our drivers make the way around. And it's quite a cloudy day here today at Brands Hatch, albeit no rain on the cards whatsoever. We do see there that track temperature of 28 degrees centigrade and a 22 degrees centigrade ambient temperature. But as all the drivers carry the way on around right now, well, not too far away from going into qualifying, only 7 minutes or so to go, and everyone right now will be absolutely itching to go racing as quickly as they can. But we've got some faces who are returned, and Isaac Doe, of course, the fastest man in his practice session right now, and he was the absolute speed demon here in the season opener on the Indy Loop, and well, to see him half a second faster than everybody else, that might be telling the fact that he's feeling quite confident around here. And well, the youngster racing not just on the simulator, but also in real life, racing as part of the BSRCC Ford Fiesta Junior Championship, and I believe at the moment contesting a spot in the top 5 as the championship has gone on, and has picked up a couple of wins this season, and as he makes one around here, he'll be looking to end his season on a high, even though he's not been able to make every round, and therefore he has ruled himself out of overall Drivers' Championship contention. To be fair, he can be a little bit of fly in the ointment for those drivers who are looking to try and contest that overall Drivers' Championship. Speaking of which, we don't currently have Adam Delmont here, intriguingly. However, we do not either have the presence of none other than Kieran Sharp, so I think it may be the situation whereby both our championship contenders in the overall Drivers' Championship are not going to make it, and if so, well, that means it will really be at the conclusion, and Adam Delmont by default will take the overall Drivers' Championship, and Kieran Sharp will become your second place runner-up. However, conversely, in the Prime class, Nick Clibbens, the leader of the Prime Drivers' Championship, he is here currently, third fastest, ahead of Sam Smith and Stuart Wyness, his main rival. He is the Track Scotland driver in the number 61. But as he makes his way through the final corner, don't rule out Kieran Smart, the Track Scotland number 2 driver in the 39, as he parks the car up there, and I believe decides to get a practice starting on flat ground. An opportunity to do so there, coming from turn 3 in towards 4, as we see Lewis Mason riding his way on around there, and all the drivers right now definitely getting in their final little bits of practice. But we do say hello in the YouTube chat there to Mark Wyness, who I believe it is Stuart Wyness' brother. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, and I hope you're doing well, Mark. He's cheering on Track Scotland, and we also do say hello to Mark Kent there. Good evening to you, Mark, and I hope you're doing well, and Mark will be cheering on the full Tilby Motorsport drivers, of which we do have some out there, including Ben Altria, who's currently parked up in the pit lane in the very colourful machine. But given we've got a little bit of time before we do go into qualifying, it's only appropriate that we perhaps try and get a word or two from some of our drivers who are currently sat out of there at the moment. And well, as we do, let's see who we can get a word with, and whether we can get a word with anybody we haven't spoken to in sometimes. It's always good to try and get some fresh faces and words from drivers who we haven't previously had a chat with or haven't recently. But in fact, you know what? I think we need to have a chat with one driver who's made his way into the pit lane. We're going to try and get a word with, man, he's out the car at the moment, and let's see if we can get a word with Stuart Wyness, who car's parked up there. So I think we're not going to stay on the gyro camera. In fact, he may not be in the car. Can we get a word from him down in the pit lane? Let's see if we can. And well, if we can, we're going to hear his thoughts on how he's feeling for the season finale. Give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what we're able to do. Well, as we do try to get a patch through to him at the moment, I think we're going to catch him now. Stuart, you got time for a quick chat?
Yeah, let's have a chat, Paul.
Stuart, season finale has finally dawned upon us. Your second place in the Prime Drivers' Championship, 26 points behind Nick Clibbens. How are you feeling coming into this round?
We'll see what happens. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a tough order to beat Nick, looking at the times just now, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, like you say, see how it goes, and well, I think that's the best way to take it, particularly when you're the one chasing. There's a bit less pressure on you, arguably, because you've just got to score the points and see whether Clibbens drops them. But coming on to the Brands Hatch circuit, of course, we're on the full Grand Prix layout today, whereas we're at the Indy layout at the start of the season. Are you enjoying the circuit?
Yeah, I quite like Brands. It's quite a nice little flowing circuit around the back, but it's quite a... Oh, as I do a spin. Quite hard to hook up. Well, I'm finding it quite hard to hook up around the back. It's so fast, but we'll get there.
Well, Stuart, we'll leave you to it. We'll let you focus on getting some final practice laps in. But thank you for your time, and good luck in the championship charge tonight.
Cheers, Paul. See you later.
So hearing it there from a bit of a reserve, Stuart Wyness, as he just tries to get a little bit more time behind the car before he does go into that qualifying session. And they're not perhaps weighing his chances up too highly, given the relative pace for himself versus Nick Clibbens. However, remember, qualifying is one part of the story, and the races is where the points are truly made or lost. And we look forward to seeing what will happen between them. Now, of course, if we've heard from the man who's currently the contestant for the Prime Drivers' Championship, it'd only be fair if we heard from Nick Clibbens. But I don't think Nick is currently available for an interview, so therefore we're going to have to park the thought of doing that. But who else can we get a word from potentially is a fault, and well, as everybody makes the way on through, we will see what we can do. As we do have Matthew Sheraton, he's just arrived at the scene. In fact, you know what, let's see if we can get a word with Matthew Sheraton, because it's been a while since we caught a word from him in a Legends machine, at least, as he makes his way on around, and we get the gyro camera. Well, as he makes his way down in towards Graham Hill Bend, let's give him a brief moment to clear it, and as he does so, Matthew, you got time for a quick chat?
Oh, I think my microphone wasn't on. There we are. Hello, hello, Paul.
No worries at all. We thought we'd give you a moment in case you need to flip a switch. How are you feeling for tonight, given the fact it's been a little bit of time since we've seen you on the grid, but good to see you in a Legends machine once again?
Yeah, well, looking forward to it. Last round, home track at Brands, like McQueen livery, so just gonna go out, have a bit of fun, enjoy the racing we have left. You know, obviously it's, well, I've missed a couple of rounds, just unfortunately, but for the rounds I have, it's been great fun. Points don't show for it, but don't care too much.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. You're here to have fun. I can hear it in your voice. Have you set yourself any targets for tonight, or are you just going to roll with it as it goes?
A podium would be nice. I don't know if I can get a win. Some of these guys are extremely quick, extremely good. So a podium would be nice. Other than that, I think as long as I come away and have quite a few good scraps, that's all I care about. Maybe a few good slides as well.
Well, fair play to you. We look forward to seeing whether you can achieve that. Matthew, thank you for your time and good luck in the races tonight.
Yes, thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our last of our pre-qualifying interviews, Matthew Sheraton, and without further ado, we're going to let them get their heads down now because it is time to go into a qualifying session. 15 minutes in duration, all the drivers out on the circuit, 24 drivers out there. There's plenty of space for them to cooperate with each other. But who's going to come away on pole? Let's find out at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. So as the circuit falls silent for a brief moment, but we go straight into this qualifying session. It is go, go, go for everybody involved as they all start to pour their way out of the pit lane. And Jamie Dury being the very first to make his way on out there. And, well, the mind behind the Legends Cup series hosted by NXTGEN Racing, you can understand if he wants to be the mind at the very forefront, not just in terms of organising things, but also being out there. But as he does so, what can we expect in this qualifying session? Well, the big answer is we can expect slipstream to perhaps have the biggest effect of them all around here because of the length of the straights, much like at Snetterton 200 intriguingly, albeit at the Snetterton circuit we did see there the circuit being split into 4 components, 2 long straights being the first 2 components, and then all the clusters of corners together at opposite ends of the straight. Here, it's a little bit of a different dynamic because of the fact we do have, if we do the mathematics, the start-finish straight, plus also the run from turns 3 to 4, plus the run from 4 to 5 by Pilgrim's Drop, and we have also got the run out of turns 8 into 9. You have effectively got 4 long straights here for these Legends machines, plus also a number of curved runs around the GP loop. So from turn number 5, which Jamie Dory has just cleared at Hawthorns, down the Derek Minter straight and into Westfield, here, all the way around to Stirling's at turn number 8, the draft is going to be incredibly powerful. But that will mean in qualifying, all the drivers will be very eager to get an initial banker lap in, and then they will want to work together as quickly as humanly possible to try and improve those lap times, because the draft is going to be worth the best part of almost a second around here, we anticipate, and it might be the reason why we have seen such a staggeringly quick lap from none other than Isaac Doble coming towards the tail end of the practice session. But of course, it's only one lap that they've got to deliver and get it absolutely right, but over the race distance they will need to deliver plenty more, and that in turn of course raises a different style of question, which is you may be the fastest driver over when it's a single lap in qualifying, but can you nail it lap after lap and enjoy the pack racing? But we'll see what happens there in the races. But right now, this qualifying session, you can see on the track map the fact that a lot of drivers all clustering together, trying to get some heat in their tyres, is Phil McDougall in the Mountain Dew machine. And well, as we do see a step aside there from Fraser Ostens, they all pile on to their first flying laps. Also, another thing to keep in mind, a longer lap here compared to most of the circuits we've raced at this season, and that is definitely also going to have a little bit of an impact. Like Oulton Park International Circuit, only what was it, 2 weeks ago, a longer lap means you have less laps available in qualifying to get it right. But that is going to be another task that our drivers will need to contend with as they make the way on through. But McDougall and what is there none other than Stuart Wyness running together for now and staying nice and tight together as they make the way on around. But I wouldn't be surprised here if they may end up tripping over each other slightly as they go a bit deeper into this qualifying distance. But we're in the way on through, they'll also get themselves acclimatised to the relative pace of each other and start to understand who is perhaps the fastest driver you want to be tucked in behind versus the drivers you perhaps want to leave behind, just for the simple reason that not as fast as you over the distance. And that's always a bit of a difficult one to try and work out, in the fact And that for a lot of drivers around here, you won't really know that until you've delivered a few laps. But that's always one of the interesting parts of qualifying when it is slipstream orientated, in that you do have to try and find the best possible driver to get behind. And you've also got to make sure you don't get too close to them too soon, because if you do, you end up in a situation whereby you essentially stumble over the back of them. And remember, it's the lead driver who has the authority out on circuit with regards to the qualifying lap, not the driver behind. Whereas in the race, of course, the driver behind has the right to try and go for an overtake if it's safe enough to do so. But enough thoughts about the analysis there of slipstream. As all the drivers come across timeline, these first laps now start coming in. It's a big gaggle of cars they're coming across. Do see Nigel Stock there with Jack Pitters in company. I think they've all had invalidated laps for the most part. And Alan McCain sets the initial benchmark of a 41.363. And Matthew Sheraton immediately pierces the sky by half a second to now go to a 40.860. Fraser Ostens there at 41.904. And Ostens continues to apply his trade. Stuart Wyness only 2 tenths behind Sheraton on 41.048. He had the slipstream there of his teammate Kieran Sharp. So they've been working together, but everybody finding a bit of time already. And there's going to be more to come, because keep in mind these tyres are still warming up, and also these cars have got a lot of fuel in them at the moment. They will burn that fuel off over the qualifying distance, and that means with a lighter car they're expected to go even faster. Will become the end of this lap, we're getting on board with one of our drivers, because they'll have the tyres up to temperature and a bit of fuel shaved off. But a lot of drivers yet to get about a lap in, Jack Pitters being one of them here in the Renault machine as he comes through the right-hander of turn number 6 coming through Westfield Bend. The lovely 28 there in its Renault Elf livery really stands out, and he tucks in behind Nigel Stock, who I think right now he may have got the situation as Pitters where he's caught up to a driver who he's a little bit faster than, or at least the draft would suggest he's faster than Stock, but the reality could be a bit different. The point being here, he may have to back off a bit in order to give himself some breathing room, because this lap so far, apart from the middle sector, he has not been on a personal best. Indeed, in the middle sector he's in the fastest of everybody, but that would be the run coming out of Surtees up towards Hawthorns. But into the draft he goes again. Nigel Stock on the personal best here, improving in the middle of the lap, but not improving towards the end of the very start of the lap. So we can expect Stock to perhaps leap up. Yes, he does. Pitters also moves up there, but Alan McCain moves even higher, up to 40.840, as Nick Clibbens has raised the bar to a 40.193. Some more lap times continue to pile in here, and with the static conditions, in terms of the fact we're not expecting any rain, just clouds and a bit of sunshine, well, this circuit is going to very nicely mature. More rubber will be laid down, and with that the grip levels will gradually rise as well, as Wyness improves to a 40.335, Kieran Sharp improves to a 40.792, and I think Kieran here has now swapped places with Stuart Wyness, and they're going to work together once again. But as they swap things around, Phil McDougall makes his way towards the timeline, and well, as he does so, as Kieran Sharp is on the grid. He's just arrived at the scene, and Kieran Sharp is going to be going for what will be potentially 3 out of 3 to try and steal away the overall Drivers' Championship crown for Adam Delmont, and Adam Delmont not currently here, of course. Well, Kieran Sharp right now the fastest of everybody out there by 1.5 tenths, and looking incredibly quick is the Sim Racing Collective driver in the 23. But we will see what's going to be his abilities. He roars his way out. Remember, for Kieran Sharp, he needs an absolutely perfect set of results. Meanwhile, Adam Delmont with a 77-point advantage. If he is watching right now, I think he'll be hoping that as the evening goes on and we do see those reverse grid starts playing effect, that's what is going to blunt the pace of the Sim Racing Collective frontman. But we will see whether that's the reality or not, because Sharp right now, I think, will be thinking with Adam Delmont absent the fact he really is at the top of the tile, that this could be an opportunity here, but he's going to have to absolutely nail it time and time again over the race distance. Isaac Doe, meanwhile, he comes on through to complete what will be hopefully his first registered lap, and we jump on board with him as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. So into Paddock Hill Bend he goes, braking there at 75 metres from corner apex and nicely over the crest, 4th gear, a little bit of apex curve, lifts the car up, and now exiting out of the corner and up the hill towards the none other than turn number 2 he goes, through Druid's hairpin, and as he does so, Lee Horn running a bit wide, Jamie Dory goes on around, and Doble swings one way then the other, keeps it pointed on the straight and narrow, and now breaking his way down to Graham Hill Bend here. He's really had to work the car, and the weight transfer slides the car out loose, but he's allowed to run out there, and now up towards turn number 4. Coming into Surtees Bend, braking incredibly late, a dab of the brakes, shut the nose in 3rd gear, and now full throttle all the way out, and flat out he'll go all the way up towards Hawthorns Bend via Pilgrim's Drop as he makes his way on the middle straight. As you can see here, the speed is building up to 110 miles an hour as he comes to the very bottom of the drop and into into Hawthorne's Bend, dropping down to 4th gear, holding an apex speed of 87 miles an hour, and back on the throttle as soon as he collects the apex and using the cambered road to push the car through, where he makes his way into Westfield Bender turn number 6. Here it's all about holding the speed. Holds a high gear as well, decides to hold 4th rather than drop into 3rd. That's to help with wheel spin. And well, in fact, Isaac Doble backing off there, and I think realising that with the way this lap's gone, he's found traffic, and that traffic has not been too helpful for him, and therefore deciding to go again very shortly. But a lovely lap up until that point, but I'm sure we'll get a bit more on-board footage in due course, as Wayne Douglas now moves up to 13th place on a 41.049. Carl Thompson puts his first lap on the board at 43.075. Still half the session to go, and a lot of drivers still to find the time out there. Isaac Doble, meanwhile, latches onto the back of a long line of cars. I think he's seen the opportunity as Jamie Dory peels into the pit. Lee Horn's just in front of Isaac Doble, so they all make the way on through together. And well, as they do, coming across that time in line. What's going to be this time around as Lewis Mason clears the time line, does not put a clear lap on the board, however, still needs to find a valid lap out there with 6 minutes plus the overtime to go. And as they do, Fraser Rostance makes his way around in the number 82, and well, coming on through, currently 1.5 seconds off of overall pole time, but he's still finding more time out there. In the middle sector in particular, he's found a lot of time, but what is Rostance going to achieve this time? As William Kurtler goes 8th on a 40.746, Rostance a 41.129, but he's closing the gap to the fastest times out there. And noticeably, in fact, this qualifying session, a very close one, despite the length of the circuit, which goes against a bit of the grain that we've seen on the longer circuits, where we have seen the lap times spread out to a degree, but here at least today right now the lap times have actually got quite tight together, particularly when you look at the positioning between Matthew Jordan, who currently sits in 4th, all the way through to Michael Leeson in 7th. The 4 drivers there separated by 1.5 tenths. It is very tight, and also there you can see from William Kurtler in 8th place all the way back to Toby Cole in 13th, where you do have the best part of 7 drivers there separated by only 3 tenths, if that. That is how close this qualifying session is now getting as we head towards the tail end of it. We're into the final third, and it's anybody's guess who can improve. We could see some surprises. Kieran Sharp, well, he doesn't spring any surprises. He parks it up in the pit lane there, and as he does so, gets ready to go once again. I think a new set of tyres potentially going on the car. Ben Altria makes his way around, and the lowest placed pro driver at the moment down in 19th place, but on an out lap here. A new set of tyres have gone on the car, and I think he'll be getting himself set to go on the attack once again. But Isaac Doble follows Lee Horn to line. He's currently in 10th, but Isaac Doble 7.5 tenths off going onto this lap. What's it going to be as he comes to the end of it? It is going to be for Isaac Doble. Not quite pole position. It's provisional second place, a 40.104. He is very close to Kieran Sharp's pole time of 40.046. Only 600 between the two of them. And well, that goes to show you right now that having the slipstream is absolutely pivotal, and also having a knack for the circuit, of which Isaac Doble has both, but Kieran Sharp has just found a little bit more leverage out there by comparison. But Sharp in the pit lane, and I think at the moment resting quite comfortably in the fact that he's guaranteed himself a start, if not on the front row, at least on the front 2 rows, as we have got Michael Lees into the pit lane with a black flag. I believe that might be a drive-through penalty for speed in the pit lane. We'll try and find out what's happened to Michael Lees in due course. He makes way out, but as he does so, well, I think that might have been a glitch of our timing tower there to say that he had a black flag against his name, because I think it has in fact been cleared. But as the 55 driver there for JWM makes his way onwards in the very colourful liveried machine, well, he gets himself warmed up, and we'll try to get as much tyre temperature as possible, but it's the barrier there. Well, that was not the way he wanted it to go, and for Michael Lees, I suspect that was a bit of an error. Perhaps overcompensating with the amount of side-to-side motion and then the car going around. But speaking of cars going around, well, with 3 minutes left, Nick Clibbens here comes roaring out the final quarter. He hasn't quite got the draft of a teammate to work with, because behind him that is Alan McCain. As I head to the fact that, yes, that is Alan McCain. That was right the first time, and they come across the line. And for Nick Clibbens, who was third, it is provisional pole position. A 1 minute 40.001. Couldn't quite break into the 39s, but Clibbens now is your overall pole man, overall in Pro-Am class, and a very good lap there. Now, will Kieran Sharp come back out and respond to this, or will he let it go? Well, at the moment, he's showing no signs of movement down in the pit lane. I think he's going to let it go as Alan McCain goes round, and Clibbens just takes it away. Sam Smith, meanwhile, gets collected there with Alan McCain, and will the iRacing Esports trio all park up together on the exit of Druids Bend, but that's not the way they've wanted it to go at all. But Nick Clibbens still out there, Sharp still in the pit lane, and Isaac Doble trying to find a bit more time to improve. Toby Cole's on a march here, as he's at a very good middle sector, but what can the 256 Pro-Am driver do here as he heads towards the line? Can he move up into the top 10? And the answer is going to be, from 9 tenths down, that's where he stays at the moment, because that was an invalid lap by the looks of things. And well, he's not got too many more opportunities. He's got this opportunity plus one more lap afterwards to try and go a little bit higher in the rankings. But for a driver who's trying to find a way up the rankings right now, Jamie Dory there, back in the field up behind him a little bit. He's got Lewis Mason for company, but he's got nobody to really work with as Dory. And well, he has this remaining lap, and let's get on board then with Jamie Dory as he tries to go for an even fast lap, but with no slipstream. I think this is going to be an absolute monster effort if he finds the time. We'll head across the timeline then and in towards turn number 1. Onto the brakes as he goes through the right-hander at 80 metres from the corner apex. And well, down to 4th gear and up the rise he charges, carrying all the momentum there as he uses all the exit curve. And now onto the brakes there as late as humanly possible into Druids Bend. New fastest lap of the race, by the way, not of the race, of qualifying, a 39.931 from Kieran Sharp. So he's put himself on provisional pole now as Dory makes his way through Graham Hill Bend. And as he does so, holding 3rd gear there, plenty of engine power and will spin with it, but right now absolutely maximising these corners as he brakes there as late as possible into 30s, approximately 50 metres from corner apex, even though the signage would say that you're braking much later than that. But as he now makes his way onto the GP loop here, well, Dory so far not on a personal best in Sector 1 or Sector 2, but as he heads all the way up towards Hawthorne's Bend in 6th gear from 112 miles an hour, he brings the car down to an apex speed of 86 miles an hour, goes slightly wide as the fight with oversteer, collects the car, but for Dory that was a bit of a scrappy moment, and that's going to compromise his run now into Westfield, where the car slides loose again. It's going almost loose, it goes one way to the other, then Dory goes on around and well, pushing it a bit too hard, and for Jamie Dory it's all for naught in the end, and being caught out there right at the close coming out of Westfield. But as he brings it back, well, he has a bit of a spin further on, and Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, right now he's trying to help out his teammate of none other Stuart Wyness find a way to get them onto the front row as well, because if so, we'd have a Track Scotland 1-2 over on in Pro-Am, and they would lock out that front row, and they put Nick Clibbens behind them. But Wyness needs to move up from 6th because, well, right now Nick Clibbens in 2nd place. Venus, though, it's a golden opportunity for him to really do battle with Kieran Sharp, and well, Smart will then be in the position whereby he needs to take the lead of the race from the start and make sure that Wyness does not gain, as in fact Stuart Wyness comes into the pit lane. He's not improved any further, and with that, Wyness will be starting 6th at best. Across the line goes none other than Duncan Wright. We also have Ben Altria across the line. He improves to 41.216, but that's not an improvement in position. What can anybody else do out there, as we don't have too many drivers coming to the start-finish line right now? Oh, as soon as I say that, of course, a load of them do pile their way around. Isaac Doble there getting it wrong at the final corner, decides to cut to the pit lane. Wayne Douglas goes on, and he's had an improving lap. As he sees the checkered flag, he comes across the line. He was 11th. He goes up to 5th. So a good lap there from Wayne Douglas at 40.236. Puts him 3 tenths over for overall pole. Toby Cole, meanwhile, is on his way, as that's a big slide loose from other drivers. Phil McDougall heads towards the line. And what he does, well, he's improving quite significantly. So what can Phil McDougall do here in the 105 Mountain Dew machine for CXR Project Black? Well, Toby Cole, he's crossing the line just in front. You can see him there at the bottom of the camera. Cole comes on through. Does he improve from 15th place? The answer is going to be yes, he goes 6th. And meanwhile, Phil McDougall jumps to 9th. So some big improvements for our lower ranked Pro-Am drivers right at the end there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is qualifying complete. Kieran Sharp takes the final qualifying pole position of the season, and it is an all Pro-Am front row of the grid because Nick Clibbens joins in there only 7/100ths apart. Your leading pro driver, meanwhile, is the 2nd place Drivers' Championship driver of Kieran Sharp. And with the absence of Adam Delmont, Kieran Sharp, so far at least, having a reasonable start to the day, but knowing that what he's got to do now is beat both Clibbens and Smart if he wants to potentially score the points he needs to start really chopping away at Adam Delmont's championship lead and potentially steal away Delmont's maiden NXTGEN Racing crown. Well, qualifying is definitely complete, and some big surprise there. Wayne Douglas and Toby Cole both improving to 5th and 6th on their final laps. A great job by them. At the other end, Jamie Dory 12th by comparison. Not the way he's wanted it to go. And Ben Altria down in 20th place. But to be fair, the qualifying times have been incredibly close around here. It really has been a qualifying session to be remembered. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, very shortly, we'll be making our way into what will be our first race of the day. As Matthew Sheridan's just making his way on around at the moment, but otherwise we are all set and ready to go for our first what will be a race of the day here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. As we do so, and as we get ready, we do say hello there in the Facebook chat to Roger Pike. And I hope you're doing well, Roger. And, well, if Andrew, your son's tuning in, I hope Andrew's doing well as well. And do let us know who you're tuning on tonight. I suspect it might be Kieran Sharp, to be fair, because I haven't seen Mr. Pike, as in Andrew Pike, out on circuit. But as all of our drivers begin to make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the first race of the day. It is an all-prime front row of the grid for race 1 of round 9 of season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, and Kieran Smart is the one who heads it with a 39.931, the only 39 in qualifying, achieved by the Trans Scotland driver. Nick Clibbens joins him on the front row for iRacing Esports, and then in third, it is second place Drivers' Championship driver Kieran Sharp for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. He was only ahead of Isaac Doble by 600ths at the close, a double sim racing, with Douglas Motorsports' Wayne Douglas there rising to 5th. In 6th is Toby Cole, the privateer, ahead of Jack Pittus, the privateer as well, and the Welshman is joined on the 4th row of the grid by Stuart Wyness of Trans Scotland, who needs to move forward from there. Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black and Matthew Jordan, the privateer, make up your top 10, and outside the top 10 in 11th, it's Sam Smith. The iRacing Esports drivers in the company of Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing. Keep your eyes out for Dory. He'll try to carve his way through the field as quickly as he possibly can, with Michael Lee starting 13th for JWM Motorsport. William Kurtler's on what is 14th place at Aztec Racing. And then on row number 8, it's Alan McCain for iRacing Esports and Aztec Racing's Matthew Cheverton, with row 9 going to Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing and Fraser Rostance, his teammate. And round off your top 20, it's Nigel Stock for Cresta Autosport and Ben Altrier for Full Tilt Motorsport. Meanwhile, outside the top 20, our final 2 rows of the grid, they will go to the likes of Mark Hughes, 21st, ahead of Duncan Ryan for Goldwyn Motorsports, and it's Carl Thompson and Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing who complete the starting order. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the lights are going on for the first time today, and it's going to be fiery lights. And it's lights out and away we go as quick as that for round number 1 of this final round of the championship. And as they roar the way and away, Nick Clibbens there getting the better start compared to Kieran Smart. Around the outside he tries to cut it and roaring the way and through with these two still side by side as they head up the hill. But Clibbens seems to have got a bit of an advantage as they make the way onto the brakes. In towards Druids Bend they go then, and look at this with Kieran Sharp trying to get into the fight there immediately, as further back we do have a bit of a scramble there for Smith and Jordan. Cars round for Lees and also Lee Horn, and Michael Lees had a nightmare start. Car round in the rear of the picture as well. Couldn't quite see who that was. I think that was Carl Thompson, but a couple of spinners, but for the most part, most of our field all safely on through. But looking back to the front, Nick Clibbens having to try and fend off Kieran Smart and Kieran Sharp. The two Kierans doing battle, albeit spelled slightly differently, and as they roar the way up towards turn number 5, well, right now, Clibbens and Smart are still side by side here. Nick Clibbens trying to make the breakaway, but it's not going to be easy because right now, Smart is doing everything in his power to prevent it from happening. As 3 wide they come in towards Hawthorns. That's going to be Kieran Sharp on the inside. He squeezes well through, and as he does so, Kieran Sharp takes the lead of the race there with a double draft, giving an opportunity to get ahead. And now Wayne Douglas tries to get involved. Toby Cole's on the outside there as well, looking for an opportunity, but Douglas sneaks ahead of Kieran Smart, and Smart now falling down the order slightly as they come out of Westfield and through Dingledale. Up the rise here, will we see anybody back out? That is going to be a very close run to the edge of the circuit for a couple of drives. Round goes Stuart Wyness. Wyness goes round. There's contact between multiple cars. Matthew Cheverton gets collected there as well. Lee Horn does, and it's all gone very wrong. And immediately we are seeing the safety car, ladies and gentlemen, as quickly as that, as Matthew Cheverton's car will need to be towed to the pits due to damage picked up, but it's going to be safety car conditions by the time they come on around and to complete the first lap of racing. And well, Kieran Sharp there right now will be leading after 1 lap, but this will start to eat into the overall race time as they come across that timing line, and the whole field is brought to a pause as the safety car will pick them up in short order, albeit I believe in fact the safety car may be a little bit away, but Kieran Sharp at least right now in the lead. And well, I don't think we're going to see any more change of place. In fact, we do have a safety car just coming out of Druids Bend, and well, it does mean that the racing is brought to a halt at least for the next 2 laps. But with that, it gives us an opportunity to regale how the top 10 stands after the opening lap of racing. And as we can see, Kieran Sharp is your leader overall and in pro, ahead of prime leader Nick Clibbens, who had a lightning quick start. However, he stayed second, but he has gained the placing class over his rival of Kieran Smart. However, before we get to Kieran Smart, in third we have Wayne Douglas ahead of Isaac Doble. Toby Cole sits in 5th with a great start from him. Kieran Smart meanwhile found himself on the outside coming through the GP loop in the opening lap. That's cost him some place and relegated him down to 6th. Jack Pittus sits in 7th ahead of Sam Smith in 8th, and behind the iRacing Esports driver we then have Jamie Dory, who's in the iRacing Esports sandwich, and he's the filler, with then Alan McCain rounding off your top 10. William Kurtler is best to arrest it in 11th, ahead of Nigel Stock. We have Fraser Rostance there, so with Ben Altria. I wonder whether that's a mistake or whether they're redressing places. They're side by side at the moment, and well, Altria tucks in behind me, and so I think Fraser Rostance just retaking the 13th place that he had when the safety car was called. Ben Altria 14th, and Michael Lees 15th there, and that's how your top 15 stands. But as all the drivers make the way around, well, we do need to take a look back at what exactly happened on the opening lap, and in particular some of the major incidents we saw at the start. And here is the quick replay, ladies and gentlemen. So, with regards to the race start, starting off with what happened to Michael Lees. Now, this was a bit of contact between himself and the 27, and then subsequently a tap round there from the RAC Esports machine behind him. So, it was contact with Sam Smith, and then Alan McCain escorting Michael Lees on his way. Carl Thompson, meanwhile, got it all wrong behind. But exactly how did it go wrong for Thompson? Well, he's in his own clear air here, and I think this might just be the car snapping round on him. It's so easy to do, and well, proving exactly that, as he just got the power down a little bit too soon and encountered some unwanted oversteer. Meanwhile, a bit later on, we did have a bit of a major moment for Mark Hughes. This was making the way up towards Westfield Bend. Mark Hughes in the green and blue machine, you see there, the green backing and the blue frontage. And was he turned on in contact there between himself and one driver he's had a lot of altercations with this season, Duncan Rye. I think those two will be having words once again after that race. And well, Michael Lees, meanwhile, having to take evasive action as a result of all that. But with all that happening, don't be phased when we do say that that was not the main event, because the main event where it all went wrong was here. And we did see multiple tries all coming through into Sheen Curve, and it was Phil McDougall side by side there with Stuart Wyness, and both drivers going on around, and Sam Smith taking evasive action. But can we get a replay of the on-board there from McDougall's perspective? Let's watch and listen in. You can see Stuart Wyness in front, and now he goes a bit wide there with Jack Pittus, and well, McDougall tries to cut in, takes a lot of apex curve. He's being boxed in by the iRacing Esports car. I believe that was Sam Smith boxing McDougall in, so McDougall didn't really have anywhere to go, and by the time he'd hit the brakes, he'd mounted the curb, and on that shorter run was always going to make his way towards Stuart Wyness, but that's why they came together. And well, Matthew Jordan was a bit further back. What happened from Matthew Jordan's perspective? He's going to see everything that unfolded for him very quickly, and once he made his way into that right-hander, well, you can see there all went wrong. Matthew Jordan taking a rallycross approach, and then until suddenly Matthew Sheraton was propelled over to him, and that's where it all went wrong for them. Oh, goodness me, and that was a big shunt there from one of the other machines coming charging on in. But back to your live racing we go, and as we do, well, we are still behind the safety car at the moment, but we will be back up to green flag racing very soon, ladies and gentlemen, because, well, the safety car lights are off, and you know what that means. At the end of this lap, we are going racing for what will be the remainder of the time available. Unfortunately, and this race at least being done to time, not being done to the laps available, but I suspect we might see laps introduced as the races 2 and 3, but we'll double check with the race administration after this race for you. But about short order, it is going to be Kieran Sharp who gets us racing once again, albeit he'll be the one to dictate the pace, and when he does so, he'll look to try and nail the restart to guarantee that he can run away to victory. And it's go, go, go for Kieran Sharp. He leaves it relatively late, and we're green flag racing once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the remainder of the race distance. Up into turn 1 they go. Nick Clibbens staying right there with Sharp. He wasn't going to be fooled, but Wayne Douglas, meanwhile, falling back a little bit further as that's run wide. Two cars together. Sam Smith coming into contact with the 32, and well, that's gone very, very wrong for William Kurtler. As everyone goes around, brilliant evasive manoeuvre in there from everybody else in that pack, and that's gone around as well. Wayne Douglas coming into contact with Kieran Smart, and Track Scotland right now can't believe their misfortune. Both drivers have been collected in instance, and that is going to give Nick Clibbens a golden opportunity here to really extend his Pro Championship lead. And well, come race number 2, he might be in a position whereby all he needs to do is score some more points, and he'll have wrapped up the championship with a race to spare. But we'll have to wait and see if that's what's going to happen, or whether it will be the avoidance of despair for Track Scotland. Because Kieran Sharp, meanwhile, right now under big pressure here as he heads up towards Hawthorne's Bend. Behind him, Jack Pittus looking up the inside of Toby Cole, wants to try and snag 4th place off of him, and he'll do so quite comfortably there as they go 2 wide through the right-hander and in towards turn number 6. But pounding their way on around right now, I suspect this is going to be the calm before the proverbial storm. And speaking of the storm, well, that's Mark Hughes, Phil McDougall and Carl Thompson fighting here. And well, right now, the privateer from GBRC looking to go on the battle, but Phil McDougall there staying ahead of Mark Hughes as they roar the way through Dingle Dale. That's going to be Duncan Bryant the inside. And, well, you can see there immediately Mark Hughes backing off very quickly, not wanting to get caught on the battle. But Duncan Bryant there almost sliding back onto the circuit. And it's almost as if these two have got magnets in their cars that attract them to each other naturally. But as they head on towards turn number 9, well, Matthew Sheraton a little bit further back, meanwhile, trying to find a way past Matthew Jordan. It's the battle of the two Matthews to prove who's the superior. And, well, Lewis Mason just in front, pulling the pair of them along. But from them, we come back to the front as another lap ticks by. And as it does, Kieran Sharp right now are running quite comfortably in position as he roars his way on through, albeit Nick Clibbens there keeping him honest every step of the way. And understandably, I suspect Nick Clibbens at this point, or his thought process is going to be just stay there with him and not miss a heartbeat. He'll just want to try and look for those opportunities wherever he possibly can. Isaac Doble and Nick Clibbens then following on behind with Jack Pittus in full place. In fact, Isaac Doble recently making up another place there on Nick Clibbens, it should be pointed out. So Kieran Sharp being given a little bit of breathing room because Clibbens was right behind him. But towards the end of that lap, Isaac Doble was able to find his way past. But now it's going to be a long line of cars, at least for the moment, albeit for how long, I hear you ask, before they all do start to separate again. Well, we'll have to try and see what's going to happen there, because I think all these drivers will want to work together, at least at the time being, only then to decide, okay, now's the time to get the proverbial gloves off, as they all drift a little bit wide. Jack Pittus there going very sideways for a brief moment, but just about keeping the car pointed on the straight and narrow. But you can understand that Jack Pittus right now is not playing around. He is absolutely hustling here, and all these drivers at this point all eager to try and potentially put a race win on the board. But it's much easier said than done, as Toby Cole now becomes a little bit of a disruptive force and tries to get into the mix there, looking around the outside of Nick Clibbens. Well, it's going to be no change for now, or is it? As Clibbens still there side by side with Cole, and Cole now moves into the lead of the Pro class, and Nick Clibbens may not be getting this all his way as they come out of the final quarter and go into a 6th lap. Isaac Doble, well, he drafts his way up the inside there of Kieran Sharp with a little bit of the side draft to help him out. But coming on towards turn number 1, where it's 2 wide between the two leaders. Isaac Doble, remember, can't win the Drivers' Championship. He's here just trying to enjoy himself. Toby Cole runs a bit wide there into the gravel, but stops him from going all the way to the barriers. But that's going to put him a long way down. Now, was that contact, or was he just too wide out on the outside of the circuit? We'll get a replay of that when we can, but Isaac Doble still keeping Kieran Sharp behind for now with 5 minutes to go. Jack Pittus, meanwhile, still battling there with Alan McCain. These two side by side as quickly as they can, and when Ian Pittus gets ahead for a brief moment as we look back from the rear of the privateer from Wales, and we're coming in towards the left-hander of Surtees Bend. Alan McCain at this time, at least, I think, decided to back off here and wait for an opportunity to try and get a little bit more involved. But we'll see what he's going to be able to do, because they power the way onwards, and we can see that Alan McCain now inching closer and closer, little by little. But it's these small gains that add up to something big by the end of each and every straight. However, McCain are not really seizing an opportunity, and Jack Pittus, keep in mind, does have the draft of the other two cars in front of him. So therefore it is a bit of a neutralisation effect at the moment, where everyone's got the toe, so nobody's really gaining or losing, and it's going to come down to small mistakes, which Jack Pittus almost making a big one there as he came out of Westfield Bend. Going the way upwards, and up as they go through that complex. We still Phil McDougall on the inside of Fraser Rustance, trying to make his way back into 12th place, and what will count for 6th place in the Pro class. But right now, not really able to find a move. Looks up the inside. Fraser Rustance goes a bit deep, and Phil McDougall's not going to waste season that opportunity this time around. Lovely move there from Phil McDougall, and Fraser meanwhile tucks back in behind, and now will try and come back on the counter attack in short order. Ben Altrier, meanwhile, continues to make his way up. He started 20th in this race, but he's already up to 10th place. Brilliant gains from the full tilt Motorsport driver in the 504, and up towards turn 1 he goes. Stuart Wyness there battling his way out the inside of Nigel Stock. This is critical for Wyness. Remember that he right now needs to try and stop Nick Clibbens from pulling any more points on him. Well, Wyness, I think, is going for the damage limitation at this point, as it's free wide there into the braking zone for turn number 2. Phil McDougall on the inside of Lee Horn and Nigel Stock. Stock goes incredibly deep on the outside. Lee Horn encounters a load of oversteer, and Phil McDougall gains 2 places. Brilliant move there. And, well, the CXR Project Black Machine now move up into 5th place in prime and 10th overall as they continue to move forward. And, well, no signs of hesitation from him. Nigel Stock under pressure. Meanwhile, from Fraser Rustance. And the Crystal Autosport driver here holding that inside line. Rustance is going to go very deep there, and that's not going to work out for him. However, he'll be thinking about how he can now potentially look for a move later on, as Kieran Smart, meanwhile, embedded into the toe of Michael Lees. We'll just be watching and waiting and listening here for an opportunity to potentially look for a move on Lees coming down at Pilgrim's Drop and up towards Hawthorne's Bend. Albeit you can see there Wayne Douglas gifting the draft to the pair of them, but Smart's going to go up the inside of Lees, but Lees is not going to give up on this immediately. They will be too wide all the way down Derek into, and in towards Westfield they go. And Michael Lees gets it wrong under braking. Lees goes on around, and well, that's a big snap there. Oversteer under braking. I wonder whether there's a tiny tap to the rear of Wayne Douglas's car, and that's what sent him on his journey. But meanwhile, speaking of journeys, we take a quick trip back up to the front of the field, and Kieran Sharp still holding on, being cheered on there in the Facebook chat by Roger Pike. Indeed, all the Pike family getting behind the man from the Sim Racing Collective, and was a roar the way across that timeline. 2 more laps to go here by my count, and Kieran Sharp holding on as Jamie Dory, who's also found his way through all this, now emerges into 4th place, and on the NXTGEN Racing driver looking for a way past Pram leader Nick Clibbens, and that will put Clibbens on a back foot versus Pitters and McCain as Dory goes snapping up the inside, but Clibbens is still there as they come on through. 2 wide and exit, but a lot of oversteer, a bit of contact between the two of them. They survive it just about, and Jamie Dory backing off there, letting Clibbens retake the position 9. The contact would have sent them both around if they carried on that progression, but no such worries there. And meanwhile, we've had drama further back. Ben Altria has been involved in an instant, and Fraser Ostens has been collected with it. We'll have to try and get a replay of that when we can, but we're going to stay transfixed at least for now to the battle for 1st through to 6th, because all 6 of these drivers pushing each other to the absolute limit here as they make the way up towards Hawthorne's Bend this time. But is there going to be any change? Well, Kieran Sharp has got Isaac Doble so close behind him as we ride on board from the leader, and looking back here, you can see the long line of cars, and now Isaac Doble at this point has got to be thinking out when's he going to go for the move. Well, not right now. Instead, he's going to offer a bump draft here for Kieran Sharp, and I think his game plan is that's a big sideways moment there for Nick Clibbens, who just saves it, battling side by side with Jamie Dory in the rear of the picture. And well, Dory does get up into 3rd place there, coming through Westfield Bend, but he's had to fight hard for that, and Nick Clibbens almost going around there. I think Clibbens right now has his heart coming through his chest, if not coming out of his mouth. But all these drivers were really pushing each other to the limit as Alan McCain and Nick Clibbens now staying together there. But the Irish Esports drivers, they're fighting with Jack Pitters, and it's going to be Clibbens trying to look for a move on the inside of Pitters. McCain will hold station behind, surely, given the fact they will not want to Irish Esports compromise Clibbens' ability to potentially wrap up the Prime Drivers' Championship by the end of race number 2. But final lap gets underway, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sharp versus Doble versus Dory, and it's a second to Nick Clibbens, the Prime leader, who's still fighting with Pitters and McCain. And right now we're waiting to see which of these 3 is going to take it. Kieran Sharp, of course, he wants the overall win, because if he does so, it opens up the door for him to just need 2 more overall wins, and he might be able to steal away Adam Delmont's crown. But coming down in towards turn number 3 right now, Sharp is going to have to absolutely put on a Goliath performance here if he wants to bring this home, because Isaac Doe and Jamie Dory are keeping him honest every step of the way. Nick Clibbens, meanwhile, where he's still battling with Jack Pitters, with Alan McCain helping Clibbens along here as they come through Surtees. And McCain right now already getting his elbows out there to Pitters, essentially trying to get into Pitters' way legally to force him to battle with him rather than with Clibbens, and give Clibbens the opportunity to breathe safely to the end of the race. But at the very front, here comes Sharp, defend on the inside. Isaac Doe looking around the outside here at Hawthorne's Bend, but of course on that bigger circumference of a line, it means that Kieran Sharp will return to be side by side. Dory thinks about making it 3-1 into Westfield and decides not to in the end. Sharp retakes the lead for a brief moment, then Isaac Doble still with him every step of the way as they head up the hill, coming through Dingledale in towards Sheen, and as they do, we ride on board with your 3rd place man here. Chips are flying, gravel's going everywhere, but right now none of these three are showing any signs of being perturbed by it. Through Stirlings they come, 1 major corner and a drag race to go, and as they make the way up towards Clark Curve and Clearways, well, right now Jamie Dory in the draft, and you can see Kieran Sharp pinning himself to the inside. Isaac Doble looking around the outside, no change, and it's going to be Doble goes to the cutback here. Sharp goes a little bit deep, but how's it going to end? Why is it Doble's on the inside? He's on the low line. I think he's got a nose ahead. It's going to be a race to the line between all 3 of them, and in the end, who wins? It's going to be, I think, Isaac Doble by the tiniest of margins over Kieran Sharp and Jamie Dory in what is a photo finish. Nick Clibbens takes prime victory ahead of Alan McCain, with Jack Pitters in 6th, and then it's Toby Cole 7th for a podium there in the Prime class ahead of Stuart Wyness, with Lee Horn and Phil McDougall completing your top 10. Matthew Sheraton best of the rest in 11th ahead of Matthew Jordan, with Nigel Stock, Kieran Smart and Lewis Mason completing your top 15, and Mason will be your pole sitter for race number 2. Wayne Douglas takes 16th place ahead of Ben Altria, and it'll be Michael Lees, Duncan Rye and William Kirtlew complete the run to 21st, with Mark Hughes the last of your lead lap finishers, and unfortunately retirements for both Carl Thompson and Sam Smith. But what a finish, as Mark Kent says there in the YouTube chat. I couldn't have said it any better myself, Mark. What an incredible finish between Isaac Doe, Kieran Sharp and Jamie Dory, and all the 3 in the end separated by only, as I'm to understand, it's separated by only, I believe, 300s at the finish line, if that, all side by side. I wonder if we can get a replay of that right at the end, because that was absolutely bonkers between the trio. And, well, we take a look back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if we can get a good camera angle of this, because, well, it was Kieran Sharp going defensive, but by going defensive as much as that, he opened up the opportunity for a cutback here from Isaac Doble. But then Jamie Dory with a double toe here, going high, found a way to try and potentially get involved. But Doble in that low line, I think in the end, will squeeze there. That was the front camera, but we did have a helicopter flying over behind them as they made the way around. And here we can see the helicopter following them on through. And this gives you a better sense of perspective of how they all converge together, with the camera focused on the leader at the end of the race, Isaac Doble. Now, Doble and nose on that low line. Jamie Dory picked up the toe, had to go all the way around. And in the end, it was a staggered 3-wide finish there. So the camera angle head-on makes it look like they all finished in a line, but not quite there. There's actually diagonally staggered, and that is how Isaac Doble was able to steal away the win from Kieran Sharp, and Jamie Dory just fell a little bit short. But as the circuit falls silent, ladies and gentlemen, what an end to the race. And just keep in mind, that's only race 1 of 3 as we bring you your provisional race results. So after a brilliant 15 minutes of racing in race 1 of round number 9 of season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, as brought to you on iRacing and powered by Doble Motorcycles, Isaac Doble, your winner for Doble Sim Racing by 17 thousandths at the finish line, ahead of Kieran Sharp. The Sim Racing Collective esports driver will know that he needed the win to give himself the best opportunity to take home the championship crown. A second place doesn't spoil it, but it makes it harder going into race number 2, and he really needs the overall win in race 2 to give himself the best opportunity in race number 3. Behind the TSRC esports driver, Jamie Dory was 3rd for NXTGEN Racing, and a brilliant drive through the field from 12th place to 3rd. Nick Clibbens, your Pro-Am winner there for iRacing Esports, makes it a 1-2 alongside teammate Alan McCain. And with that result and the difficulties for the Track Scotland pair of Stuart Wyness and Kieran Sharp, Clibbens now could wrap up the Pro-Am Championship with a race to spare after the next race. In 6th, it was Jack Pitters. The Private 2 in the end had to settle for 6th behind the iRacing Esports pair, who fought him 2 for now. We have Toby Cole rounds off the Pro-Am podium there in 7th place. Well done to Toby with a brilliant 3rd place finish in class. He was ahead of Stuart Wyness, who recovered well to 4th place in Pro-Am and keeping his championship hopes just about alive for Track Scotland, with then Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing and Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black completing your top 10. Matthew Sheraton was 11th for Aztec Racing, best of the rest, ahead of Matthew Jordan. They are only separated by 72 thousandths at the line, if that, with Nigel Stock in 13th place for Quest Autosport ahead of Track Scotland's Kieran Smart. And with that result, it essentially now rules Kieran Smart out of contention for the Pro-Am Drivers' Championship. So it is now a 2-way fight between leader Nick Clibbens and Stuart Wyness. In 15th, Lewis Mason will take your reverse grid pole position for race number 2, because he has finished at the bottom end of the inverted grid order for Aztec Racing. He was only ahead of Wayne Douglas by the best part of 200ths at the line, with the Douglas Motorsport driver holding off Full Tip Motorsports Ben Altrier, who came to blows right at the end. And your top 20 was completed by Fraser Ostens, Michael East and Duncan Ryan. Behind the Goldwyn Motorsports driver, there also finishes for William Kurtler and Mark Hughes. And a lap down, Carl Thompson there. And a lap further down, 2 laps down from the overall winner, Sam Smith for iRacing Esports. So 24 starters, 24 finishers, of which 22 on the lead lap. Well, that was only race number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and if race number 1 has set the pace and intentions for the remainder of the evening, we are on for a cracker, and we will be back in approximately 7 to 8 minutes' time for the build-up to race number 2. Don't go anywhere, you won't miss it. We will see you very shortly. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. And we are back, ladies and gents. When we apologise for the delay, but all technical issues have now been put away. And with it, we are back to full throttle racing for round number 9 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup Season 3. As brought to you on iRacing, powered by Doble Motorcycles. And what a race number 1 that was, with battles up and down the field. And in the end, a 3-wide conclusion where our top 3 separated by only 300ths of the finish line, with Isaac Doble just pipping Kieran Sharp to the post, and Jamie Dory just missing out and needing about 2 or 3 more metres to steal things away. Well, as we've got 3 minutes before we go racing it once again, it's a good idea to perhaps grab a word from one of our drivers, and let's go a word to the man who almost stole away the victory, Jamie Dory, as we get a patch through to him in the car.
Yep.
Jamie, you got time for a quick chat?
Yeah.
Now, Jamie, race number 1, we've had a bit of a delay between races 1 and 2, but what a way for race number 1 to end. 300 separating you, Isaac Doble and Kieran Sharp. I bet you were hoping there was about 2 or 3 more metres worth of racetrack to that checkered flag.
Yeah, to be honest, it reminds me of Silverstone with race 2 with Nick Clibbens. I just don't time him quite right. I think the start line or the timing line's a bit further away. But hey, it's good for the audience, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. It was a thrilling end to the race. And now we've got one more to come very shortly. How are you feeling for another 10 laps of racing?
To be fair, I'm looking forward to it. I love driving these cars. They're so lively, they're so fun, and anything can happen because as much as a lot of it is skill, toe has a massive part of it. Enjoying oval racing, it makes it quite interesting. It's just timing it at the right time to be able to do so.
Well, Jamie, thank you for your time. We'll let you get some more time to practice for race number 2, and we'll see you out on the circuit.
See you later, Paul.
So hearing there from Jamie Dory, ladies and gents, but he absolutely loved race 1. He's excited for race number 2. No doubt about it. You can hear it in his voice. But as we leave him for a brief moment, let's try and catch a well with race 1 winner, Isaac Doble, as we get a patch through to him from the pit lane. Isaac, you got time for a quick chat?
Yeah.
Well, Isaac, it's great to have you with us once again. It's great to see you right up there. What a win in race number 1. I bet you can't quite believe you just stole it away from everyone.
Yeah, well, the toe in these cars are so huge. I was just waiting till the final lap to make my move, and I didn't quite do it where I wanted to down the back straight, so I knew there was one more chance going into the last corner and the run to the line, and by a very small margin I managed to get the win.
Well, tiny margins make the difference, but race number 2, you start 15th, you've got to carve your way through. What can we expect from you?
Lots of overtaking, I hope, and maybe another win would be nice, and some more close action-filled battles.
Well, we look forward to Isaac. Good luck in race number 2. We'll see you at the checkered flag.
Thank you.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a pause down any further interviews with our drivers before they go racing. Let's let them have 30 seconds to get their heads down. But you heard there from Isaac Doble and Jamie Dory. Oh, could it be Lee Horn parking it up there? Well, I think that might be Lewis Mason parking up in solidarity, and also there, Phil McDougall. In fact, no, they're not parking up to take a look, as much as they'd love to take a photo. They decided to park up there to practice their starts. I thought Phil McDougall might have lent out his window then and gone, you can't park there, mate, as the classic British saying goes, or the meme that seems to be all over the internet. But they're all practicing their starts, so they want to get the best possible start they can. Wayne Douglas practicing it with Phil McDougall. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as all the drivers get themselves set, it's time for race number 2. And who's going to come away with victory? Let's find out. So as the drivers make their way onto the grid for the second race of the day, this is how they line up. It is Kieran Sharp who takes pole position. Well, in fact, he does indeed for the Sim Racing Collective Esports ahead of Nick Clibbens, who takes second place. Behind the iRacing Esports driver, it'll be then Isaac Doble. I believe this grid may be incorrect, ladies and gentlemen. It may have reset itself. Give us a brief moment. I think we've had a bit of a technical hitch. Let's just double check that with regards to whether things are working as intended. I do apologise, but we should have a top 15 reverse grid. But I think the grid may have gone astray. And in fact, as we double check, this is how the grid is going to line up. It is Kieran Sharp who lines up at pole position for the Sim Racing Collective Esports ahead of Nick Clibbens in second for iRacing Esports. Isaac takes third for Doble Racing ahead of Jack Pittus in fourth. The Privateer ahead of Kieran Smart in fifth for Track Scotland. And then we do have in sixth Stuart Wyness. So in fact, we are, I believe, potentially getting a restart to lobby process, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't think this race is going to count as the lights do go on. I think we are going to be having a further pause as all the drivers there decide to have a bit of fun on the grid. But unfortunately, we have hit a bit of a technical hitch, and I believe we are going to need a bit more of a deep investigation as to what's gone wrong. So therefore, we're going to take a pause. We will be right back as quickly as we can be. But there is going to be a bit of a delay to race number 2 because technical issues continue to confound us. We do apologise. We'll be back as soon as we possibly can be for plenty more Legends Racing action. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again. Despite the technical issues, we're not giving up going racing, and well, we believe we've got on top of them. But if not, if the grid is still in the incorrect order, which was the issue that blighted us on our first and second attempts at going racing, here in what is the second race of round number 9 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup Season 3. Well, we've had an update from the admin team to say we will be going racing either way. So if the grid's in the wrong order, our drivers will have to take the chips where they fall, and unfortunately, and it's just going to be the frustration that our drivers will need to contend with. And that's how the race 3 grid will be set. Well, that is going to be determined after this race is completed. But that is the story, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, it does seem as though a technical issue which is out of our control is blighting us right now. But without further ado, it's time to head to the grid for our restarted race number 2. So the drivers make their way onto the grid, where it looks as though, unfortunately, the grid is a shuffle still, but this is how they're going to go racing either way. And it is Isaac Doble who is going to have a major opportunity to try and make it 2 for 2 here for Doble Steering Racing, ahead of Matthew Sheraton for Aztec Racing. On row 2, Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing is joined by William Kurtler, the prime pole sitter for Aztec Racing, with Jack Pitter starting this one in 5th place, ahead of Toby Cole. Then we have Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black. He begins in 7th, ahead of Kieran Sharp for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. And it's Ben Altrier for Full Tilt Motorsport and Nigel Stott for Crystal Motorsport who complete your top 10. Outside the top 10, Lewis Mason and Kieran Smart share row number 6. And behind the track Scotland driver is Nick Clibbens and Stuart Wyness. We then have Duncan Rye, 15th, ahead of Michael Leese, with Alan McCain and Fraser Ostens on row number 9. And well, we'll have to stop the run through the order there, ladies and gentlemen, because everyone's in place. They're all very eager to go racing. You can understand why. And it's going to be 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for our second race of the day. And with the scrambled grid, they all get underway quickly. And it is Matthew Sheraton who's had the better start of the ball as they come charging in towards turn number 1. And Sheraton around the outside. There's further back. We can see 3 wide as Toby Cole taps there, but he gets the car back points in the straight line just about as they head up the hill and in towards turn number 2. But Drury Twend awaits them. Fraser Austin has added off in the rear of the picture. And as they all come around, all of our drivers are very eager to get going. And well, it shows because right now they haven't had any calamities coming down the hill. But as soon as I say that, it goes roll for Alan McCain, and Mark Hughes goes rolling down the hill, rolls back onto all 4 wheels, but that's not the way he wanted it to go. Meanwhile, with all the drama there's not drama further up the order because at the very front right now, everything is as it was. We do see Matthew Sheraton and Isaac Doble nose to tail here, and Jamie Dory and Jack Pitters now playing the game of catch-up as they roar the way down the Pilgrim's Drop. But Doble looking around the outside as Dory now starting to build up a double toe here. It's going to be a lot of speed, but he's not going to go for the move immediately. He's going to wait patiently as they all come through. Doble still around the outside of Matthew Sheraton. Sheraton on that tighter line. He is going to have track position going into Westfield Bend, and that's going to aid him. But Isaac Doble there trying to pinch him around the outside. Just ahead for now. It is still too wide as they head up the hill. William Kurtler meanwhile coming through. Car wide. That's Toby Cole who's taking the trip outside. And Isaac Doble and trying to go around the outside of Matthew Sheraton through Dingledale and Sheed, and now coming into Stirling's Bend. Isaac will finally get the inside line and make the magic happen. Ben Altrier has had a good start, currently holding 8th place as he continues to hook onto the back of Nick Clibbens, with Phil McDougall just a little bit further in front, and in towards the final corner they come. Onto the brake, Stuart Wyness looking up the inside. There's been a bit of a lock up. Now who's got it wrong? Jamie Dory's gone to the grass. He's been escorted there. Didn't quite see what's pushed him to the grass, but in the end that's where he's fallen. And after one lap of racing, it's Isaac Doble who leads ahead of Matthew Sheraton in 2nd. Jack Pitters 3rd. In Pro-Am lead, it's Phil McDougall who's 4th ahead of Ben Altrier and Kieran Sharp. Nick Clibbens is the 2nd of your Pro-Am drivers in 7th ahead of William Kurtler, with Nigel Stock and Kieran Spark complete your top 10, and Stuart Wyness with his teammate in 11th, but very quickly going up the inside here for 10th place. Onto the brakes they go. Stock gets a bit too tight, and that collects both of the track. Scotland drivers almost there, and how on earth Kieran Spark managed to avoid that, I do not know, but Stuart Wyness, that is heartbreak. And well, with that, if things finish now as they currently stand, you are going to see your Pro-Am champion right here provisionally on screen. It would be Nick Clibbens with a race to spare. That is a nightmare scenario for Track Scotland, particularly for Stuart Wyness, but he's had bad luck striking twice now in 2 races, and I can't believe his misfortune. As meanwhile, Isaac Doble there has gone out to trim the weeds coming out of Surtees Bend. And the rest of the field are carrying on, but roaring the way on around right now. While our drivers coming through, Jack Pitts battling side by side with Matthew Sheraton, and Pitts up the inside here, and that's going to be a move back into lead of the race for Pitts. Indeed, with first time he's been leading here at Brands Hatch, given the fact that last time we saw him lead some laps was a couple of rounds ago. But Phil McDougall was still battling side by side with William Kurtler, albeit we're losing at McDougall, and he's rematerialising. And well, that's going to be an instant, and that's William Kurtler being tapped there by Kieran Sharp. Now, what triggered that off, we don't quite know in terms of how they created into each other's paths, but in the end, William Kurtler comes off the worst of the two of them. Looking a bit further back, there's Duncan Barai chased after Fraser Austin, Alan McCain and Sam Smith, a close company behind him, and then Nigel Stock and Mark Hughes, the last of your runners, with Matthew Jordan in the pit lane with damage to his car, and I don't think that Matthew Jordan's going to be going racing anymore, at least in this race tonight. But front of the field, Pittis and Sheraton now 1.7 seconds clear of the rest of the field. They're pushing each other onwards here as they go on to lap number 3, and as they come on across the line again, they're absolutely goading their way forward, as Isaac Doble now has to try and deal with the pack behind him. But further back, Kieran Sharp still too wide here, battling with Wayne Douglas and also Michael Lease, albeit this time on the outside. It is going to be an opportunity for Lease to squeeze up the inside, and Sharp so far out wide there as Kieran Smart now tries to get the door open. Gravel all over the circuit, and where things finish as they currently stand, Kieran Sharp would be relegated to second place, as we do have the call for a safety car here come at the end of lap number 3, and that's been due to the incidents that have occurred as of on lap number 2. The safety car is being deployed. Our race director has made the call to deploy the safety car, and that'll bring William Kurtler, Carl Thompson and Matthew Jordan back into the racing, all being well. But that is definitely going to consume 2 of our laps, as we do see there's some damage to the front of Sam Smith's car, and I think he'll be grateful for the opportunity to peel the car into the pit lane and take a fast repair. But the racing for now gets neutralised. And as it does so, as all the drivers will need to now stay in their positions and make their way around to catch up to the safety car as quickly as possible, which gives us an opportunity to take a look back at some of the chaos of the opening couple of laps. And well, with that, ladies and gents, we take a look back in particular to that race start. And well, the reason we'll take a look back at the race start, we're going to keep an eye on Toby Cole, who started on the 3rd row of the grid, starting 6th place. And we're having some slight connectivity issues there for a brief moment, but he got going okay. The reason why Toby Cole is the focus of our attention, because we wait to see what edged him wide at the very start. Now making his way into turn number 1, side by side there, William Kurtler, and in the end, getting a bit tangled there. Kurtler got tapped off the side of Phil McDougall's car, and Toby Cole went sideways off of that. So that explains their story. Fraser Austin's, meanwhile, had a bit of a difficult start to his race. In fact, he got turned around. What happened to the number 82 driver? Well, through turn number 1 he went, and as he did, nobody around him there, and well, just ran out a bit too wide, too much steering off on cold tyres, and kicked the car around. So Fraser Austin's there, coming to grips with his Legends machine a little bit, unfortunately, but he'll try and get back up to speed as soon as he can. Alan McCain, well, we did have this happen to the iRacing eSports driver, and as he made his way out of Druids Bend on the wide line, just lost the rear of the car, and Lee Horn collected with him, and the two ricocheted off each other, and unfortunately then Sam Smith came to the scene of the incident, and Mark Hughes had nowhere to go. But speaking of Mark Hughes, we ride aboard, and well, this won't be for the faint-hearted, ladies and gents, but you'd be warned if you're afraid of motion sickness, because he's going to carry out the corner, see a bit of smoke in front of him, but he's never going to have time to react to suddenly Alan McCain's car being ping-ponged back in his direction, and well, Mark Hughes going up, over and around there, and I don't think he's going to quite believe his luck. But from that, we also had this for Jamie Dory on lap number 1. This was towards the end of the lap. And as he made his way into the final corner, tucked in by Matthew Sheraton, hitting the rear of Matthew Sheraton's car, and the car bouncing sideways there. And well, that would have been the concertina effect and the momentum being curbed on the car, but Dory, thankfully, able to keep it away from the barrier. As for Stuart Wyness, this was on lap number 2 coming up to Druids Bend. At the time, he was side by side with teammate Kieran Smart, but what happens in front of him, he has no control over, and that is Nigel Stock going around. The Crystal Sport car rolls backwards. Toby Cole takes evasive action to the gravel, but Wyness has no space to operate, and then Fraser Austin comes into the back of him, and well, praying occurs between the two of them as a result of the timing between them. And well, we did also have this happen to William Kurtler on lap number 2, and this was Kurtler batting his way in towards Dingledale and subsequently Sheen, and was he made his way on down. A bit of a tap there from Kieran Sharp coming up behind him. Kurtler would argue that it was turned. Sharp would argue that Kurtler came on his racing line, but that explains the major instance we saw from the opening couple of laps of racing as we return to your live racing. But we are still behind the safety car, and well, the next time around we will see the safety car come on in come the end of lap number 5, and at that point we'll have 5 more laps of racing to go. You can see the lights are off of the safety car, which means at the end of the next lap we will be going green flag racing. However, very disruptive start to this race. We've had 2 safety cars in 2 races now. And it's not been the races that perhaps our drivers have expected, but these things happen, to be fair, and that's why we do have the safety car available as we ride on board a little bit with Michael Lees, trying to pump some temperature into his tyres and therefore trying to get himself in the best possible trim for when we go racing. But he's got the whole lap in which to do so here, so he'll know there's plenty of time to get himself composed, collected and ready together. But it definitely has been a struggle of a race so far for a number. But in terms of your biggest gainers, well, Wayne Douglas has absolutely carved his way through the field up into 7th place. The most places gained of everybody, given the fact he started all the way down the back of the running order, all the way down in 24th, and he's made his way through into a 7th place start, so a 7th place on the restart, I should say. So therefore, this has absolutely been a brilliant run from the Douglas Motorsport driver. But conversely, big losses for solo drivers out there, including William Kurtler, who's all the way down in 22nd place, and the last of our runners were Carl Thompson and Matthew Jordan, both in the pit lane, and both of their cars being repaired, and hopefully he'll be back out for race number 3. But the field all comes together. Sam Smith there just ahead of William Kurtler. And at this point, I think patience is definitely going to be a key factor in terms of how good a restart you get as we ride on board with Nick Clibbens, the Irish esports driver, who right now leading Pro-Am on circuit ahead of Phil McDougall, who's right behind him. But for Clibbens, the most important thing is the fact that with Stuart Wyness down in 7th place in Pro-Am right now, where things were the finished as they currently stand, we would be looking at our provisional Pro-Am champion going into race number 3. There'd be no way for Wyness to overhaul Clibbens at that point, but we will see what happens as our drivers all follow the safety car through Stirling's Bend. And well, meanwhile, in the update on Kieran Sharp, who's currently running in 9th, right now, if that's where he finishes, he will not be able to keep the championship alive versus Adam Delmont going into the final race of the season. But without further ado, the safety car pulls in, and Jack Pitters will take us back to the green flag racing. And he goes immediately, does Pitters. He wastes no time in going green flag racing, ladies and gentlemen. We go on to lap number 6. 5 more laps to go here as they charge their way across the line. And as they do, well, Pitters, Sheraton and Isaac Doble all nailing that restart together. So Pitters not catching everyone out. And I think everyone was expecting he was going to go immediately just because of the fact they're all so eager to go racing. Unfortunately, Carl Thompson is a lap down. He's making his way into Hawthorne's Bend at the moment. He'd used up his fast repair earlier, so therefore he's had to go with a manual repair that's cost him time. Big side loose there for Phil, but Doug will come through Druids on the marbles, and therefore Wayne Douglas up the inside and takes the place, now moves into 6th place. Kieran Sharp a bit further back, well, he's trying to make his way through, but right now it's not forthcoming for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if Sharp at this point might just be trying to think tactically about what's the best way to pick his way through. Again, he's got a few laps to do so. We know he's lightning quick, but he's got to make those moves quickly if he wants to keep his championship hopes alive. Toby Collins, Stuart Wyness fighting side by side here. Lewis Mason getting involved as well. And in fact, Wyness in the end bay will break away as Dory goes around again. And I think there a slight tap between himself and his rivals, sending Dory around. A very odd place to go around, to be fair. But still, Jamie Dory exploring all the track and then the grass with it. But Nigel Stock under pressure on William Kurtler at the back of the field. Kurtler close as he looked for it into Westfield Bend. Probably not, but meanwhile Duncan Wright does versus Alan McCain. And well, a bit of gravel being kicked up there. That is a wayward car of Lewis Mason. I don't know how he's ended up there coming out of Westfield. But meanwhile, Alan McCain goes around the outside of Duncan Wright and takes the place and moves into 7th place in Pro-Am and 14th overall. Remember, how they finish this race, if the grid is able to be set, it will be a full reverse grid going into the final race of the season, and with 15 laps of racing for our final race. But back to the front of the field then, with 4 to go. Jack Pitters right now holding on to that lead. The battle for 2nd place between Isaac Doble and Matthew Sheraton. Well, we do know that Isaac is trying to make it 2 out of 2 here, and will right now firmly on course for it potentially if he's able to stay ahead of Sheraton and then go hunting after Pitters. But it's one thing to be said, it's another thing to do it in practice. As I head up the hill, and well, we can see Matthew Sheraton looking to the inside, can't quite find it. Isaac Doble tries to cut around the outside, but Pitters gets his elbows out. Matthew Sheraton cuts back up the inside of the Doble Sim Racing driver. It's the rear picture. Phil McDougall goes around. That's a spin coming at Druids, and that's going to set him all the way down the order as he gets the car turned. But back to your leaders, and looking back from the rear of our race leader as Matthew Sheraton pushes him along. Right now, Jack Pitters constantly being hounded and pushed by his rivals behind. I think they're all wanting to try and break away from each other, and this top 5 now firmly running off into a distance. Well, 1.4 second gap to Kieran Sharp. But here comes Matthew Sheraton then looking down the inside. Meanwhile, Isaac Doble tries to squeeze around the outside, but there's no space for him. So Sheraton surely will take the lead of this race as they come on around. He does by a nose for a brief moment. Isaac Doble now on the the inside coming up through Derek Minter, and in towards Westfield they go, and it's going to be Isaac Doble moves into second, and Pitters relegated back to third. Valtteri and Clibbens are right behind him. Nick Clibbens, of course, the Pro driver, whereas everybody else in this top 5 are Pro drivers. He knows where he finishes amongst them. He'll still take the Pro weird. Valtteri was losing it there. He gets it again. Almost goes to the grass, and my goodness, the full tilt motorsport driver keeping it in one piece just about, but I wouldn't be surprised there if his heart's absolutely jumping out of his chest with that one. That was a brilliant save, not just once but twice. I imagine if Mark Kent is still with us in the YouTube chat, he's going to be thinking, okay, Ben might have something with regards to his hands in terms of being able to catch a car, and if he can catch a car like that, he might even be able to play cricket. But as they head up towards the timeline now, well, this top 5 all looking left, right and centre. It's 2 wide at the front and now 3 wide at the front as Nick Clibbens tries to squeeze his way up the inside. And coming around, it's going to be 4 wide at the close of the apex, and will Bitters and also Doble force each other out wide, and Sonny Sheraton and Nick Clibbens are at the very front of this as they go onto the brakes into Druids Bend, and Kieran Sharp, he's making his way through. Sharp has caught up, and now he's right in the fight as Wayne Douglas clears eyes at Doble, and Doble goes around, and he has to wait there on the exit of the corner, finds reverse gear, but that is going to be a very painful moment for the youngster, given the fact that he was looking on course to change for the win, and now he falls all the way down to 18th. But of course, the upside of that is, if he finishes this far down, he's going to have an even bigger opportunity in the final race of the day to make it a victory. But coming to Lee Horn meanwhile, and Lee Horn chasing after Toby Cole, runs a little bit wide out of Surtees Bend with Fraser Rostance being pulled on along behind him and up towards turn number 6. Well, they were all the way onwards at this point, and Lee Horn just keeping his head down as meanwhile Alan McCain and Stuart Wyness still fight each other, and McCain at this point of course will be wanting to be a bit of thorn in the Track Scotland driver's side, but as they come out of Hawthorne's bed it gets a little bit tetchy between them as we can see Kieran Smart backing off there. He waits, hold up a second, what's happened there? Ben Altria has gone around, and well, he's been able to catch the car twice, but on the third time he's not been able to at Westfield Bend, and well, he's run out of his 9 lives. However, it was a score. Oh my good lord, what on earth has called Phil McDougall to be catapulted up, down and around he goes, and Phil McDougall, that is not how you take the GP loop. That is 10 out of 10 for theatrics, but my good lord, I'm getting Gabriel Tarquini vibes there with that car going up, down, around, each and every way, and I'm surprised there's a door panel left on the Mountain Dew CXR Project Black machine, because right now that is definitely shaken, not stirred, and incredibly fizzy with it. But with that, coming on to our penultimate lap, it's all going to complete chaos up and down the order right now. Nick Clibbens, meanwhile, is somehow managing to find a way to keep things absolutely stable. As soon as I say that, he goes sideways as well. What on earth is going on for our drivers as Wayne Douglas goes around? I don't quite believe it. They're all losing it around here. And was Douglas, oh no! That's William Kurtler into the side of Wayne Douglas. Just takes 2 time an exit line. When Kurtler comes back alive, and Ben Altria taps him on the rear, and Kurtler gets out the way in the end. And my good lord, it is all going wrong, but right now who can get it right, who can survive to the checkered flag? And goodness me, because right now, if this carries on, I don't think my voice is going to go up another octave. But as they make the way down the back straight and up towards turn number 6, and I love what Mark Kent said there with regards to the fact that Phil McDougall playing at Roller Coaster Tycoon, not iRacing it seems. And well, that's a reference, of course, the old simulator of age where you manage a fairground and you manage all the roller coaster rides there. And Phil McDougall definitely on a roller coaster ride of his life, it would seem. Well, our top 4 now have definitely somehow found a way to keep things calm until Kieran Sharp says, right, let's throw a hand grenade in there, and calls it to explode, and well, makes his way out of Sheen and moves into the lead. But Matthew Sheraton is right back there with him, but Sharp right now fighting for a win that will keep his championship aspirations alive to the very last race of the day. And Sheraton meanwhile just trying to go for a victory of his own. They're all fighting for something out here as Pitters and Clibbens side by side, and they're just enjoying a ding dong scrap before what is the point. But looking to Alan McCall, oh my good lord, and Kieran Smart there sideways with the machine. I'm trying to see if that was, I believe that was contact with none other than Duncan Murray in the end, but he's gone absolutely flat. In fact, that was Alan McCain he came into contact with. It is a very furious racing between them all, and well, the white flag waves. It means we're on to the final lap, but Track Scotland here really have got war wounds aplenty from this race, and I can understand if they're incredibly frustrated with this race number 2, because things have not gone well for them at all. And there's your top 4, and then Stuart Wyness somehow has made it back into 2nd place in Prime Class. I can't quite believe how he's done this. It will mean that the Prime Championship goes one more race before the end, but of course it will need Nick Clibbens to have an absolute nightmare race and Wyness to somehow pull off an absolute miracle of a run. But as he makes his way around there in the number 61, or if anyone can do it, Stuart Wyness can, as he makes his way down the back straight. But he's got to keep Alan McCain behind him. Meanwhile, at the front, now it's going to be Nick Clibbens trying to go around the outside of Matthew Sheraton through Hawthorne's Bend. I don't know if he's going to get that. I don't know if anything that's going to open up the door to Kieran Sharp as they come out. In fact, both Sheraton and Clibbens take all the grass with them and plenty more. But there we can see Sharp up the inside then. Clibbens being made to stay on the outside as Pitters just watching behind as they head up the hill and around. And as they do, the top four there calms down for a brief moment, but not without Nick Clibbens looking for the cutback here versus none other than Kieran Sharp. But the problem is he's then going to have to try and find another cutback here coming through Stirling's Bend. Further back, Duncan Marai and chasing after Fraser Rostance for a little bit. And Fraser Rostance, of course, for his best result of the season, 8th place overall and 4th in Pro-Am. But we'll see how that works out, as meanwhile Matthew Sheraton comes out the final quarter. He's looking comfortable here, and for Matthew Sheraton, it is going to be race number 2 victory for the Aztec Racing, driving the 390 ahead of Kieran Sharp, who keeps the overall championship alive for one more race. Jack Pitters finishes 3rd, and Nick Clibbens takes Pro-Am victory with Stuart Wyness in 5th, holding on just about, but now he needs a miracle in race number 3 to take the Pro-Am Championship. Alan McCain rounds off the Pro-Am podium in 3rd in class, 6th overall. Lee Horn takes 7th ahead of a season best for Fraser Rostance. Duncan Rye with a season best performance as well, 5th place of the Pro-Am class and 9th overall ahead of Kieran Smart, who takes 10th place there, and Isaac Doble, meanwhile, best of the rest in 11th. Jamie Dory takes 12th as he spins his way off into the recovery area ahead of Wayne Douglas, with Lewis Mason and Toby Cole completing your top 15. Michael Lees, Mark Hughes, Ben Altrier, Nigel Stock and William Kirtler completed your top 20, and we still do have Phil McDougall, who after all his theatrics coming through the GP loop has somehow survived and held on to finish 21st, 13th in the Pro-Am class. And then we will have Carl Thompson, who in the end will finish a lap down, but credit where it's due to the privateer on the number 20, and in fact he's still seen it all the way through to the checker flag, and that's what we love to see as he makes his way to the line. They're very sideways, I think, in a car that definitely has seen better days, but still, race number 3, I'm sure they'll bang the body panels out and he'll go racing once again. So as Carl Thompson finishes his race and all the drivers make the way into the pit lane, Matthew Sheraton there deciding, I think, to perhaps celebrate. Let's take a look at those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, ladies and gentlemen, and here they are. Well, after an absolutely chaotic race number 2 that had a little bit of everything, from a grid that wasn't the grid we wanted, but we rolled with it, through to a safety car early on, through to cars rolling, spinning, you name it, they've done it. Matthew Sheraton was able to stand ahead of all the chaos, and for Aztec Racing took victory by 2 attempts over the Sim Racing Collective Esports' Kieran Sharp. Jack Pitters rounded off the overall podium there, the privateer in 3rd, the Welshman just making sure to stay a 10th ahead of Nick Clibbens, and Nick Clibbens taking Pro-Am victory there for iRacing Esports. Stuart Wyness somehow keeping his head and recovering to 2nd place in Pro-Am, and it means the Track Scotland driver does have a sliver of a chance of taking the Pro-Am Championship crown should Nick Clibbens retire from the race, and Wyness has the perfect race to steal it away, I do believe. The Track Scotland driver in 5th there ahead of iRacing Esports' Alan McCain, who rounded off the Pro-Am podium in 3rd in class, 6th overall. Lee Horn was 7th for NXTGEN Racing, head of teammate Fraser Rostance for a season best, 8th overall and 4th in Pro-Am. And then Duncan Wright, a season best 5th place in Pro-Am class there. Well done to the South African driver for Goldwyn Motorsports, head of the Scotsman at Track Scotland's Kieran Smart. Isaac Doble was best of the rest in 11th for Doble Sim Racing, 5 seconds clear of Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing, who had that late spin. And then we did see the top 15 completed by Wayne Douglas of Douglas Motorsport ahead of the Aztec Race's Lewis Mason, and Toby Cole rounded off the top 15. Michael Lees was 16th ahead of Mark Hughes, with Ben Altrier, Nigel Stock and William Kirtler completing your top 20. And outside the top 20, not to be forgotten about, Phil McDougall at 21st, and there was a lap down there for Carl Thompson, with 2 laps down to Sam Smith, and an unfortunate retirement after lap number 1 for Matthew Jordan. So it does mean 24 starters, 23 finishers, of which 21 on the lead lap, ladies and gentlemen. And well, we have now only got one more race to go before we bring the curtain down and conclude Season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, powered by Doble Motorcycles. And coming up shortly, in about 10 minutes' time, will be our 15-lap feature race. Who will our champions be? Well, we'll be back shortly to find out. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. And we are back one final time this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Despite the technical issues, we're going to make it through to race number 3. And we have got an absolute fantastic finale to see us off for Season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup as our drivers make their way out to the circuit for a final time. So, an update on how this final race is going to play out. Unfortunately, a technical issue with the iRacing lobby making system seems to be in place, whereby we are unable to set the grid as we would like to. We're unable to fully invert it and therefore have everyone line up as we would like. So what we're going to do instead, out of fairness, as soon as all of our drivers are ready, we are going straight into a one-lap qualifying shootout to set the grid for the final race of the season. And after that, we will see all drivers line up for a final time for our scheduled 15-lap feature finale, or the 25-minute race that we have at the end of each and every week of racing. And, well, it's been decided by the admin members in amongst the council of drivers that's the best possible way to do things, given the limitations we have, rather than having the randomised grid of what we did see in race number 2. But due to time, understandably, we want to try and get proceedings underway because we haven't got too long before we need to curfew the racing, at the risk of the fact we do have drivers racing from multiple time zones, not just the United Kingdom, and particularly those in time zones that are more forward than us. Well, it's heading towards midnight for them already, and, well, we want to give them the opportunity to get some sleep because many of our drivers, if not all of them, are working men and women, and therefore they do need to get some rest before they do go to work the next day. But that means it's going to be interesting because on a one-lap shootout, cold tyres, plenty of fuel in the car, it's going to be making it a very challenging prospect to contend with, and it will be the question of who is the master or the maestro of being able to get the car hooked up over a single lap here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, which it is a long lap. And that's going to open up an opportunity for potentially some drivers there to get some tyre warming in with regards to what will be their initial out lap, but they won't have long to do it, and then everyone will have to gamble it all on a single lap. But as for our championships, well, Nick Clibbens in Pro-Am, he looks to be absolutely locked on now for the Pro-Am crown, minus if there's an absolutely miraculous turn of events where Stuart Wyness would need a perfect score and for Clibbens to have a nightmare. And, well, meanwhile, in the overall Drivers' Championship, Kieran Sharp needs a perfect result, we believe. However, will it all play out that way? Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we head into our one-lap qualifying session to see how they're all going to line up for our final race. And here we go then. As all our drivers make the way out, well, they have 5 minutes on the clock, but only one lap available after their out laps. They know they need to make the most of this out lap to get as much tyre temperature as possible. It's a closed qualifying session as well, so everyone has the circuit to themselves here. Nobody's going to trip over each other. Everyone has the right to a full lap, completely uninterrupted. There's no slipstream, there's no benefit to teamwork here. It's all just simply about delivering the best possible lap you can. And, well, we could see a complete mix-up of how the drivers line up on the grid, and that's going to definitely shake things up. And we do make our way to the race 3 grid in just under 5 minutes time. But Carl Thompson makes his way around here, and, well, he had a bit of woes with regards to race number 2, but it has not dampened his spirits, no doubt about it, as a number 21 driver carries his way on around. As he does so, well, it absolutely rolled, it bounced, it went everywhere on the GP loop. It did Phil McDougall's CXR Project Black car. However, they've been able to get it repaired and get it back out there with all the body panels put back on and screwed on tightly. And, well, I'm definitely amazed it's back out there for this final race. But Phil, to be fair, he's made it hard stuff, is Phil, and as he makes his way through turn number 5 right now, he's going to be looking forward to one final race around the circuit. He did all the drivers that he joined this Brands Hatch circuit, but now it is coming down to the big question: who is going to be the one who can really deliver a golden lap? Well, we're going to see shortly, because Alan McCain comes through Stirling's Bend, and he's going to be the first of many to go on to their flying laps very shortly. In fact, he will be the very first to charge his way onto his final flying lap of the circuit under qualifying conditions. And, well, here goes Alan McCain then as he roars his way on around. Well, Wayne Douglas back in the pit lane, so he's decided to reset and go again. However, here comes McCain in, and across that timeline, he charges his way on to lap number 1. And what's he going to be able to do here? Let's find out as he comes on around. Well, looking very smooth there as he comes through the opening corner, and we jump aboard here with McCain. and get the dashboard in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Through Druids he goes, down to second gear there, 49 miles an hour average on the apex, and coming out now, bringing it over to the right-hand side to open up turn number 3 into Graham Hill Bend, an early braking zone there because it is down here on a slightly off-camber corner as well. We're coming out to turn 3, very shortly up towards 4, and well, the 30's corner, but the apex, you can't see it, you have to keep turning and hope that you've broke late enough not to go too deep, but to be able to get to the apex just right, and Alan McCain perfecting that as he uses all the exit curb and now powers his way onwards towards Hawthorns. Well, he's nailed the majority of the Indy loop, but now it's the GP loop where he's got to carry as much speed all the way through the next 4 right-handers. Heading towards Hawthorns Bend he goes, dropping from 6th to 5th and decides not to fall to 4th there. Holds an apex speed of 86 miles an hour. Not the best apex speed we've seen at Hawthorns. The best has been 89 miles an hour, as set by Isaac Doble earlier on today. But coming close as he comes out of Westfield and now through Dingledale and up into Sheen. Staying nice and tight over to the outside there in order to open up the corner, and we'll exit in there, not using all the road width. I think cold tyres there just preventing McCain from having the confidence to be able to use all the road, but through the left-hander of Sterling's he goes, and as he does so, now flat out all the way up towards the Clearways curve. But through that right-hander he comes in as McCain, and rolling his way out. Now it's all the way to the timeline for McCain, as it will be for many. But what's he going to be able to do here for his one and only flying lap? He will be the first to get a lap on the board, and well, we'll see plenty of time jump onto the board shortly after him. But McCain crossed the line, and for him it is going to be a 41.107. Meanwhile, Stuart Wyness goes pole with 40.313, an incredible lap there. But Jack Pittis is faster by 300. Who else has got the time out there? Meanwhile, Nick Clibbens has set a time. That's a 40.547, so not quite on the pace of Wyness. Toby Cole goes 5th. Further down, we've still got plenty more times to come on in, including very shortly one from Carl Thompson. Where does that put him as he comes across the line? That puts him 14th. Lowest place to those who set a lap so far. Wayne Douglas has made his way back out there. Mark Hughes has had a spin out the final quarter for Hughes. That's going to be back of the grid start. That's not worked out at all. Matthew Jordan comes across the line. A 141.806 for a slight improvement over Carl Thompson by half a second. And well, who else can get a lap on the board? Mark Hughes will have an invalidated lap as Lee Horn goes 13th. We've got Ben Altria still out there coming towards the timeline. And where does the full tilt motorsport driver go? And we're coming across the line there. He's going to make his way to a 41.937. It's a nightmare lap for Ben Altria, and you can see the frustration there as he puts the car to the barrier. He's not happy with that at all. Matthew Cheverton comes on through here, and we'll no purple sectors to talk about for Matthew Cheverton, but across that timing line, and well, rolling his way to line. And for Cheverton, it is going to be here a grand time in the end of... It's an invalidated lap for Matthew Sheraton. It does not work out at all, and therefore Sheraton does not get things done. But Wayne Douglas makes his way around, and what can Douglas do here for the final time today? Well, rolls his way for the right-hander. He won't get the time to because he's run out of time. It's time to head to the grid for ladies and gentlemen for our final race of the season. Here comes our 15-lap feature. So as all drivers make the way onto the grid as quickly as they can for race number 3 of round 9 of season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, it is Jack Pittis who lines up on pole position for the final pole position of the season, ahead of Stuart Wyness, the prime pole sitter for Track Scotland. On row number 2, we're going to have the pairing of Isaac Dole for Doble Sim Racing and Nick Clibbens for iRacing Esports, ahead of Toby Cole in 5th and Alan McCain in 6th. Then we have on row number 4, Sam Smith and William Kurtler, with Kieran Smart and Michael East completing your top 10. Outside the top 10, Nigel Stock starts 11th ahead of Jamie Dory, with Lee Horn and Lewis Mason together on row number 7. Row 8, it's Matthew Jordan and Ben Altria, with row number 9 going to Carl Thompson and Matthew Cheverton. Matthew Cheverton being the first of many not setting a valid time, and that theme continues with Phil McDougall and Duncan Rye completing your top 20. Outside the top 20 on row number 11, it's Fraser Austin and Mark Hughes, and last but not least in 23rd, it is Wayne Douglas. We have lost a driver, and well, by losing one, we have gained a space at the back of the field, but Orchard is absolutely itching to go, and well, 23 starters there will be for this final race of the season campaign, and Jack Pittis takes the final pole position there. As we say hello to Adam Delmont in the YouTube chat, who's been asking, how's Kieran Sharp gotten so far because he's on holiday and phone signal's not too great? Well, firstly, Adam, I hope you're having a good time on holiday, and well, secondly, for Kieran Sharp, it's been a very interesting day, as in fact, hold up a second, we're missing Kieran Sharp from all of this. What exactly has happened to Kieran Sharp? Well, whatever's happened, he's not on this grid, and that means, unless my eyes do deceive me, ladies and gentlemen, it means that the Overall Drivers' Championship will go to Adam Delmont. Sharp did have an opportunity to take it, but he needed a win, but he's not going to be there to take it. So therefore, as the lights go on, they go out, and it's lights out, and away we go for our final race of the season, and Jack Pitters roars his way away from pole position. Nick Clibbens, Stuart Wyness and Isaac Doble all together, but Clibbens getting the better start of the trio there as they make their way into the corner, and Alan McCain goes round before he's even taken the first apex, and while the iRacing Esports driver falls away from his teammate, and Nick Clibbens will be by his lonesome for a bit. But all the field comes up into Druids Bend, and those who've survived all the chaos, well, we look to the blimp camera here as they make the way on around, and back down the hill in towards Graham Hill. A couple of drivers getting a bit caught up. Their car around. That's Phil McDougall collecting. None of them Fraser Rostons, and the two of them got hooked on each other. In fact, that's Wayne Douglas who's got hooked on. My apologies. And well, they've had a bit of a nightmare moment there, but I'm sure they'll try and understand it and settle the differences when they can. But as all the drivers make the way through Surtees, Jack Pitters now will start to see things settle down behind him, and now we get right into the thick of the fighting as they make the way onwards. Remember, an extra 50% of the lap total here. We have got a long way to go in this one, and everyone will be pushing each other every step of the race distance. Going through turn number 5, and Clibbens, Doble, Wyness and Cole all firmly matched in behind Jack Pitters as they come through the GP loop for the first time. Kieran Sharp in 6th. We have Smith and Kurtler behind, and these two right now I think just trying to establish some momentum, as in fact William Kurtler looking up the inside through Dingle down into Sheen versus Smith, so therefore William Kurtler is not going to back off the throttle, but there's going to be a slight rub between the two of them. It sends Smith out wide. Smith comes back on, but Lee Horn now will get right behind him as further back Duncan Mariah there gets ahead of Lewis Mason, who takes a trip to the weeds. As Carl Thompson and Matthew Jordan move onwards, both of them have had a good start, and well, looking from them to 2 by 2 as our leaders make the way through the final corner, and well, they're going to have 14 more runs of the lap now as Pitters leads after lap number 1, but Nick Clibbens is right there behind him, the Pram leader, and well, then you can see Isaac Doble and Stuart Wyness completing the top 4, but 3 wide they come over the line, and as they do, let's give a look around the inside by Clibbens, but Pitters putting himself in the middle of the road, gives Isaac Doble an opportunity to try and squeeze his way out the inside as the sparks fly for the undertrays of these machines, but Pitters is still leading. Nick Clibbens battling there, and Stuart Wyness right alongside him here, but remember, Clibbens does not need to beat the Track Scotland driver in order to take home the Prime Championship crown. All he's got to do is score some points in this race, literally the bare minimum, and Stuart Wyness will be relegated to 2nd at the end of the championship as Wyness again. I don't believe it. I seriously do not believe it for this man. I think right now, if lightning could strike 3 times, would it be a lower probability than what Stuart Wyness has gone through today. Thankfully, it's only a small clip in there with Isaac Doble, but right now, Stuart Wyness, whenever he's in a shot of taking the lead of the race, suddenly drama is before him, and that drops him all the way to 14th. He's got a long way to go in this one, however. He can get back in there, and well, the field has not separated out too much, but I think right now how that man is still racing after the calamities he's been through this season, particularly in this round, that is testament to his mental fortitude, because the Track Scotland driver right now is having the worst luck of everybody, it would seem, as they all roll the way around, and that's William Kurtler going around there, and also Lewis Mason, who's gone in the opposite direction going out Westfield Bend. Aztec Race's 2 drivers, they've both had a nightmare moment, but from their nightmares, the Aztec Racing drivers having a good fun fair. Matthew Sheraton, who did not set a qualifying time, who started 18th, is already up into 8th place, and he's very quickly encroached upon Michael Lees and Lee Horn now, with Jamie Dory just in front as they come to the end of lap number 2. Isaac Doble, meanwhile, right behind here as we ride on board with the Doble Sim Racing driver, who's side by side with Nigel Stock as they come down the start-finish line straight. There you can see it on the exterior camera as they head in towards Paddock Hill Bend. And well, what can Isaac Doble do here to make sure he takes the place of Nigel Stock? I think he's just got to commit to that inside, does exactly that, and Nigel Stock in the end does not have a counter-attack as Matthew Jordan gets a little bit closer behind, but onto the brake. Shepperton goes very deep, just about gets and stops. Michael Lees goes round, and the whole field splits around him, and well, drama there very quickly found at the Druids Bend, but everyone able to avoid the way with JWM machine, and well, how they all avoided that, that's testament to their ability. I think all the drivers here are really absolutely sharp on the buzzer, as meanwhile Duncan Mariah there having a bit of a moment with Mark Hughes, and as we've said multiple times today, these two have magnets in their cars, I swear, as Duncan Mariah up the inside of Hughes, and well, this is an absolutely elbows out battle between the two of them, as Duncan Mariah breaking away for now, but Mark Hughes goes around into the barrier. They're coming out of Surtees Bend, and something tells me that's the exit curve there, catching out the undertray of the car, and will send it absolutely spin into the barriers, but hopefully Hughes is able to recover from that one, as we have lost Ben Trier and Phil McDougall from this race. And there are our first 2 casualties in terms of retirements, and we still have a running field of 21 cars all on the lead lap. No sign of a safety car in this one. We've had a safety car in both races 1 and 2 pretty much after the opening lap, or the opening 2 laps, but right now the safety car has stayed away at least for now. But Jack Pitters, Toby Cole, Nick Clibbens and Sam Swift, your top 4. They continue to strip onwards, with Pitters the only pro inside this top 4, and then you do have Cole, the leading Pro-Am, ahead of the Irish Esports Pro-Am pair of Clibbens and Smith, and of course with Kieran Smart and also Stuart Wyness both being caught up in those incidents on the previous couple of laps. It does mean that they've fallen a bit away and astray, but our top 3 then make the way on through, and well, they all fan out here with Clibbens going up the inside of Toby Cole. I think Cole at this point just being the patient hunter and waiting for an opportunity to come back in. Lewis Mason tucks in behind William Kurtler as they head up towards the line. And as they come in towards turn 1, the 991 driver just tucking in behind his teammates here. And I think he'll be fancying a fight a little bit, but the flip side of the coin also being he won't want to be too adventurous, given the fact they will lose the likes of Rostons and Mariah in front of them. We will see how that works out as we look to Duncan Mariah, currently running in 9th place in the Pro-Am class, and well, he achieved a season best result in the previous race of 5th place in Pro-Am, albeit right now I think he's a bit far away from achieving that, but you never know what could come, given the fact that all the drama in race number 2 seemed to benefit the number 33 driver. But right now at least as Fraser Rostons overcooks Surtees Bend, that's going to enable William Kurtler to get involved there, and Kurtler now side by side with Rostons. Rostons all defending inside coming down through a Pilgrim's Drop. However, Kurtler, by trying to go around the outside, will pick up the toe off of Mariah, and that's going to give him a bit of confidence here to swing round the outside. Rostons is still there, can't shut the door, but William Kurtler in the end does get ahead as Lewis Mason and Michael Lease now all hold that outside line, and Fraser Rostons here really find himself now pinned to an inside line, which is costing him speed and time with it. But Michael Lease here is not quite able to find his way around as the Aztec Racing drivers all queue up to take a run at Fraser Rostons and finally get the moves done. But Michael Lease here tries to go around the outside at Sheen Curve, but in the end takes some grass with him, somehow keeps the car pointed to a straight line. Credit where it's due to Michael Lease for doing so, by the back of Fraser Rostons. And as we ride on board here with the man from JWM in the 55, well, right now, what can Lease do at this point? Well, I think the answer is he's got to play the patience game here. He's definitely shown his eagerness to make a move, but just because he's eager doesn't mean that place is going to immediately come to him, even if he has got a lot of pace up his fingertips. But coming across that timeline, then they go on to lap number 5 and completing the first third of the race shortly. Well, we can see there Mariah and Mason side by side, as that's going to be Duncan Mariah going a bit wide. In fact, both Aztec Racing machines get through as the seat sunny part, and well, with that, Mariah went one way, Fraser Rostons went the other way. You couldn't make it up. That was almost as if there suddenly Michael Lee said he wanted to part the seas, and the Legends machine stepped aside either way. But coming back to the front of the field, well, Jack Pitters still keeping Nick Clibbens behind him. These two have swapped places on the straights, but Pitters seems to have the advantage in the corners, but Clibbens, Cole and Smith are still right there with him. And then you have the battle for 5th between Jamie Dewitt, Matthew Shurton and Lee Horn, and these three all pushing each other onwards at the moment, and their pace is very close to the likes of the leaders here, so they are trying to work together to bring themselves into the lead fight and therefore make it a 7-way fight for victory rather than a 4-way fight. As we see Isaac Doble there using all the road plus a bit of value-added grass in order to be able to try and pick up a bit more pace going at Hawthorne's Bend. He is definitely pushing it to the limit as Isaac Doble, as Nigel Stock is bringing Matthew Jordan, Kieran Smart and Alan McCain to the fray. But speaking of Kieran Smart, looking up the inside here into a Sheen, and that is going to be relatively straightforward. And well, Kieran Smart now moves up into 5th place in Pro-Am, and he's just trying to salvage whatever he can out of this race and make sure that he's 3rd in the Pro-Am Championship come the checkered flag. But I don't think there's any risk at that, to be honest. I think right now the thing you'll be hoping for is potentially, if there is a bit of drama for Nick Clibbens, that he can be as close as possible to Clibbens to force Clibbens backwards towards Stuart Wyness. But then again, keep in mind that Wyness really needs the Pro-Am win here for any opportunity to try and take the Pro-Am Championship crown. But 2 by 2, our midfield battle comes in towards Paddock Hill Bend, and it is Nigel Stock who holds off Kieran Smart for the corner, but Smart gets the better run up the hill. As he looks to the inside onto the brakes, and I think Kieran Smart's going to have this for the brief moment, but Nigel Stock will not be too far away from potentially trying to come back at him. But down the hill they come, and as they do, we have an opportunity now to take a look back at some of the incidents in the early stage of the race, and we start off with what happened to Alan McCain on lap number 1. Now, for the Irish Esports driver, this went very wrong before he even cleared the opening apex, hit the rear of Stuart Wyness' car, and that sent him spinning around, and thankfully did the 360 twirl and brought it back together and kept his foot down to make sure he didn't trap it in the gravel. Then, only moments later, this happened for Duncan Mariah. The Goldwyn Motorsports driver headed up the hill in towards Druids Bend, but what exactly went wrong? Well, it was he made his way through the corner, coming onto the power, and as he did so, ran a bit wide there and had to avoid, thankfully, the incident between Phil McDougall and Wayne Douglas, who came together, and well, Fraser Rostons as well, had to take evasive action. This is what happened to Ben Altrier on the opening lap. And going into Surtees Bend, side by side for Matthew Sheraton, and then Sheraton on the inside, through the corner they went and tapped the rear of Matthew Sheraton's car. That sent him to the tyre barrier, but thankfully he was able to avoid it. Then we had this happen to none other than Lewis Mason a bit later on lap number 1. And well, this was coming down the back into the GP loop, all over the back of Matthew Sheraton. And well, as he did so, I think battling with Fraser Rostons there, and Rostons glide out sideways, a small tap to Lewis Mason, and Mason doing very well to put that on the grass and then carry it back on. But after all that, we then had this on lap number 2 for Stuart Wyness. This was the big drama at Graham Hill Bend, and that meant that suddenly Stuart Wyness, who was battling hard with Nick Clibbens, was relegated a long way down the order, and that was all for a big bit of snap oversteer from Isaac Doble, and Stuart Wyness just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time to be collected. Also on lap number 2, this is what we saw happen to Ben Altrier, and this is why he's retired from the race. Coming through Surtees Bend, the full Tilby Motorsport machine made its way through, took a lot of apex curb there, unsettled the car and into the tyre barrier, and at that point, well, absolutely spinning across the road, and well, that was a tow to the pit lane. Those are your big incidents then from the opening couple of laps, ladies and gentlemen, at least what we've been able to catch on the replay cameras, and we now come back to your live race. We never want to leave it for too long. As always, we can miss all the excitement, and right now your top 4 continue to squirm and fight each other, and well, at this rate or not, they are lapping in the mid-41s. Meanwhile, Matthew Sheraton, Lee Horn and Jamie Dury behind, they are lapping in the mid to high 40s. They are gaining on average 5 to 7 tenths a lap versus the top 4, so they will be with that top 4 within, in theory, the next 5 laps, if not sooner. However, Isaac Dole's latched onto the back of this, and Kieran Smart, in fact, is not too far off either in terms of the pace, so if he can hurry along and prevent himself from fighting with Alan McCain, and well, here they are to prove what we're talking about, well, they might be able to move forward. But Alan McCain right now definitely proving to really do everything he can to try and fight 4th place in Prime. He wants his own points in his own championship, but I think also there is the ulterior thoughts in mind, which is if he can frustrate the rest of the field behind, and he can guarantee that Nick Clibbens can be on the podium in the Prime class come the end of this race, and therefore with 110% certainty guarantee himself becoming the Pro-Am champion. But over the rise they go in towards turn number 1, and all through 2 by 2 they come on around and down, and well, that is going to be Alan McCain keeping Kieran Smart behind for now. He does love defending on the outside line, come through Paddock Hill Bend into Druids, but Smart all right there on the inside here. He's going to send this all in, and Matthew Jordan tries to squeeze his way through, but in the end it is going to be the way of Kieran Smart to get ahead. Lovely move there from Smart. Matthew Jordan also making his way through, and Nigel Stock as well, as Alan McCain going too wide there and losing 3 places for the price of only 1 wide line. Now we do need to make a correction. The contact that we said happened between Fraser Rostons and Lewis Mason in the open lap, that was in fact the contact between Matthew Jordan on the inside of Lewis Mason. So we do apologise there for framing the wrong man. But meanwhile, coming back to the front of the field, Pittus versus Smith makes his way to us now down the Delmont into straight. That is going to be Smith on the inside. Jack Pittus down the outside. A bit of uncomfortable contact between the two of them. They survive it, and Toby Cole, meanwhile, just watching this from behind as we jump on board with the 4th place driver. And well, you can understand here for the 2-5 fixture. Oh my good lord! And that's all gone wrong. And what I was about to say, he's just sat there waiting and watching in the wings. But all of a sudden, it all goes wrong for our top 4, and it means that Jack Pittus now is 2 seconds clear of Sheraton, Horn, and Dory, with Isaac Dole there with them. But is he safe here? That all went very wrong, and well, within a short order, our top 4 has suddenly turned into a single driver at the front. But can we get a replay to explain what exactly happened there? And the answer is yes, we can. And here's an immediate replay. Now this was coming up towards turn number 7. In towards the bend they went, and Smith lost it there on turning, and suddenly Clibbens had to back off, lost it over the apex curve. Jack Pittus meanwhile kept the throttle buried and made his way through the chaos, and Toby Cole was so close to the back of Nick Clibbens he had nowhere to go. But intriguingly, what this does do now is it means as we come back to your live racing, we have a top 5 of pros who are suddenly all fight each other, as Matthew Sheraton there taking a bit of grass for his misdemeanours. But we have a top 5 of pros, and then from 6th all the way down to 20th place, albeit with retirements and pit lane right now for Carl Thompson and Duncan Rye. It means that right now we've got the 5 pros who remain in this race together, and then the rest of the prime field is giving chase, which intriguingly will give an opportunity to Track Scotland's drivers of Kieran Smart and Stuart Wyness to try and make some further progress. Particularly if we were to have a safety car, suddenly that would cause the entire prime field to be bunched up together, and it could cause complete pandemonium in the last few laps of the race. We're not wishing a safety car, of course, and well, a safety car will only be called if it's absolutely necessary to do so, but that's going to be the thought in the back of the minds of a few drivers right now, that if a safety car should be called, this suddenly will see the individual class pack scrambled again, and it will completely mix up the racing for what will be a real sprint finish here, as Lee Horn there keeping two wheels on the road just about, with Jamie Dory, Isaac Doble, Matthew Sheraton all right behind him, and Nick Clibbens and Toby Cole right there, but Lee Horn right now with the unenviable task of trying to keep the rest of the field behind him as he tries to chase down Pitters, but Pitters' pace is now opening up that lead gap once again, because Horn has no toe to work with, and I think everyone behind him has now forgotten to run to the script here, which is work to go to catch up to the leader. As you can see, Pitters making his way through the camera at 40.635, Doria 41.75, and everyone else in the high 41s as well, and well, that goes to show what's going to roll with the pace. This has got run for Matthew Sheraton, who's got around, and well, Toby Cole almost goes with him, however all the others avoid him. Kieran Smart in third place now of the Brown Classes. That's a big elbow moment there from Sam Smith as he tries to rejoin Nigel Stock coming careening in, and contact between teammates. Alan McCain and Sam Smith come together, and suddenly Smith drops back as Alan McCain takes 6th place. But I think they'll have to talk about that one after the race, because that was purely unintentional. But I can imagine that both drivers had their different perspective on what exactly happened as Smith recovers. But in fact, that is going to be a toe to the pits for Sam Smith. I think there's an issue, excuse me, with the car, and Smith might have his race in the arrears now. Well, as we take a brief breather, and as all drivers make the way onwards, well, we see Adam Delmont there celebrate already that he is a provisional overall champion for this season, taking his first ever NXTGEN Racing crown, and he is going to try and join us for a post-round interview afterwards. Even though he hasn't been on the grid today, he'll try and join us from holiday, and well, we'd love to hear from our champion. But all the drivers feathering the way on through, and well, the laps continue to wind on down because we are coming to the end of the second third of this race. Jamie Dory there backing off, I believe, for a slowdown penalty and yielding the places to Isaac Doble and also Nick Clibbens, but he's not losing the slipstream to them there. He's playing it very smart and tactical, but from them, Kieran Smart battling with Matthew Sheraton. And through Sterling's they come 2 by 2, and Sheraton, despite his spin at Paddock Hill Bend, it's not taking away any of his morale momentum, and well, Smart there right now getting his elbows out and saying to Sheraton, you're not going to crowd me off on the inside of Clark Curve, I'm here to stay. And as they go on to clearways, well, these two drivers right now absolutely side by side, two for now fighting here, as we see Jordan and Stock queuing up behind them, both hedging their bets behind the driver in front of them, but who's the right one to follow? Well, it's going to be Kieran Smart on the inside, because they come down the hill, Kieran Smart gaining all that momentum, and Matthew Sheraton too far back to really think about a lunge here, particularly with Stock on his inside, and also Matthew Jordan coming barreling in, as that's going to be contact between Stock and Matthew Sheraton. Sheraton goes around there. If there was contact, the camera angle suggests there was, but there may not have been. But Matthew Sheraton having another spin after only having 1 moment to go, and we'll drop him further down the order now with Stuart Wyness right behind him. One has to be grateful for a little bit of a partner to work with, given the fact that two of them are very fast on pace around here, and therefore that will help Wyness get a bit closer to Lee Horn, and then subsequently move even further. Well, first they've got to catch up to William Kurtler and then Lee Horn, so you never know what could happen between them all before it's all said and done. But we are starting to see the field spread out a little bit, and at the very front, Jack Pitters just running away. 4.6 seconds clear, with Isaac Doble and Nick Clibbens together in the fight for second, and then Toby Cole and Jamie Dory. What are the disruption that happened in this pack only a lap ago? Well, it now looks as though our top 5 have spread into pairs and solos. Kieran Smart, meanwhile, well, he's still got the long line of cars. There's 5 of them, from himself all the way back to Lee Horn, and William Kurtler is the further 2.5 seconds off the back of all this, and would love to become an actor as we see him in the rear of the picture. But looking to Alan McCain here as we ride aboard the nose of the 212 Iris Esports Prime machine. Well, right now he's here still trying to look for an opportunity to take 3rd place on the Prime podium, and with potentially 6th place overall, but he's got to try and carve his way through. And that's a lot easier said than done when you are racing amongst a quartet of drivers here, all very eager to try and put one over each other, and all racing in the same class as well. That always adds a little bit of tension to it. On towards Paddock Hill Bend, and Nigel Stock goes up the inside. Matthew Jordan there playing it rather safe, under braking very early by comparison, and well, Alan McCain with the fastest lap of the race of 39.547. He's building momentum here, he's absolutely coming alive, and that's going to be Jordan up the inside there. Nigel Stock having a big tank slapper moment, the rear of the car sliding loose, and the same there for Matthew Jordan, but Jordan able to get through thereabouts, so McCain will gain 1 place, but he'll be hoping that he can gain a bit more without being collected by the wayward cars in front of him. He's going to be thinking about a move in towards Curtis Bend, but I don't think he's going to go for it. Here's McCain. No, he plays the safe option, which is tuck in behind and carry on. Looking back to Jack Pitters, well, there is your race leader, as we do see Isaac Doble there What on earth's happened? Taking the grass with him. I'm not quite sure what's happened, but I think perhaps that he's got a little bit complacent running out of Surtees and onto the back stretch, in the fact that taking all that grass then having to weave his way back onto the circuit, that's completely unusual. But Isaac Doble, well, whatever he's doing, he knows what he's doing in the end. He's brought it back together as Clibbens and Cole are right behind. Further back, Alan McCain still knee-deep in the fight as they roar the way out past the tree line. And we see McCain there side by side with Nigel Stock. Taps to the rear there of Matthew Jordan's car. Does he survive it? He does not, as he goes very wayward and into the gravel and into the tyre barrier. Avoids just a small brush with the barrier in the end rather than a big shunt, but Alan McCain has been sent all the way back down the order, and the iRacing Esports Driver Cup will be absolutely fuming at that with how it's all gone wrong for him. Matthew Sheraton, meanwhile, has got Stuart Wyness pushing him along right now. These two working together here as the laps are running out, and we get an opportunity to take a look back at what happened to Alan McCain. Now this was heading up the run in towards the Sheen curve, and as he did so, touched the grass there initially, sideways, and Nigel Stock holding that inside line. I don't think realising that McCain was loose, and from Nigel Stock's perspective, we'll jump on board to give you an idea of what that looked like. Well, he's not going to know that McCain's lost it here, and now as they make their way into the apex, what he'll then suddenly see is that McCain is much tighter than originally planned. They've already connected at that point, and both drivers then have got to hold on and hope that it doesn't go wrong, as Lee Horn tried to take a cheeky look up the inside of Stock coming out of Sterling's Bend, being then that cost them both time rather than worked out for either of them. But now back to live racing, and well, Sheraton and Wyness together there. Nick Clibbens, meanwhile, trying to hold on to second place, and the prime leader at this point still fighting with Isaac Doble. This brings Cole and Dory right back into the hunt, so it is going to be a four-way fight for second place again at the end of the race. But Jack Pitters is being allowed to run away with this, and indeed right now nobody able to match his pace because they're fighting each other too hard. Back to Michael Lee, so we take a sip of water. You have to excuse me for that. And as Michael Lee gets nice and close to the back of Alan McCain. McCain right now knowing really there's nowhere to go at this point other than to have a bit of a scrap for 8th place in prime and 14th overall. But goodness me, this race definitely has had quite a few retirements. Sam Smith, Carl Thompson, Duncan Wright, Wayne Douglas, Ben Altrier and Phil McDougall have all retired from this race at different points due to major incidents which have seen their cars inoperable, and well, you've got to feel for them in the fact it's a frustrating end to the season for them. But as we come on to the penultimate lap of the season, well, Jack Pitters setting a personal best of 40.271. Nick Clibbens, meanwhile, just another mid-40. Not quite a personal best, but he's doing everything he can right now to hold on to second versus Isaac Doble, Toby Cole and Jamie Dory as these drivers all fight each other. Keep in mind, of course, Clibbens right now is guaranteed to take the Prime Championship crown. Either way things go, with the fact that we do have Stuart Wyness all the way down in 6th place in Prime class, and given Clibbens' performances over the first two races, he has definitely sealed the deal. And in the overall Drivers' Championship, with Kieran Sharp missing this final race of the season due to a technical issue with the car, it does mean that Adam Delmont, in absence, has taken your Drivers' Championship, and with it, we believe provisionally, his first ever NXTGEN Racing overall Drivers' crown. But as Clibbens and Doble push each other onwards, oh my goodness, and how on earth that's gone wrong. That was similar to what happened earlier. I wonder whether Isaac Doble and Nick Clibbens had a prang with each other. They made a little bit of contact. These cars get very temperamental with regards to their barge bars at the front and the rear of the car. If they're not hit square on, and particularly if they're damaged, they become very volatile. I wonder whether Isaac Doble just had that happen between himself and Toby Cole in a very similar vein to what happened when we caught him taking a bit of a rally cross line down the back straight earlier with Nick Clibbens. And if so, that would explain why Isaac Doble has been all over the place down there. And well, behind Cole now by 9/10, he'll feel as though he's a little bit third party to this battle. But then again, being this far back gives him the opportunity to pay attention and wait for, if there's an opportunity, alternative, all three of them take each other out. But as our race leader goes into the final lap, we see Wyness, Kurtler and Matthew Sheraton fight each other here. Stuart Wyness up the inside of both of them, trying to move into 6th place in Prime and 10th overall, and takes the place there as he moves onwards. Matthew Jordan, meanwhile, fighting for 3rd place here in the Prime class, and as he makes his way around, well, Kieran Smart, they yield to a brief moment, but Smart's not too far behind, and now trying to look around the outside as they go onto the brakes. Now through Druids Bend, you're going to see there Jordan will naturally come back into view, takes a much more symmetrical line compared to the V-shape approach that Kieran Smart cuts. And as he comes through Graham Hill Bend, well, Smart right now, much better approach the apex, really managing the understeering the car. Matthew Jordan, by comparison, struggling a little bit. Smart looking up the inside here, but decides in the end just to tuck back in. And, well, Matthew Jordan goes deep. He runs out very wide. And, well, Kieran Smart takes the place there, moves up into 6th place. A lovely move there. And will now up into 3rd once again. But it may not be over between them as they power their way down the back stretch. And what we can see is now Matthew Jordan trying to look around the outside here. But is he going to be able to find it? The answer is no, he won't. Meanwhile, in the battle for 2nd place, Clibbens, Dory, Cole and Doble, they're all together here still as Jamie Joy try to go around the outside as they come down and up towards Sheen Curve. 4 wide there for a brief moment. That's not right, and it doesn't work out at all as Isaac Doble goes up the inside. It causes everybody to creed outwards, and well, Nick Clibbens comes off the worst of it all, and Jamie Dory with him. However, that's not going to upset his run because meanwhile, as Jack Pitters makes his way out the final quarter, he's in a world of his own, and for Jack Pitters, the final win of the season is going to go the way of the Pro Privateer as he heads towards the timeline. And what a drive from Jack Pitters to take the final win of the season and one of his very first in his NXTGEN Racing Legends career. Toby Cole takes prime victory there in 2nd place, just ahead of Isaac Doble at the line, who finishes 3rd. Nick Clibbens is your prime champion with that 2nd place and 4th place overall, ahead of Jamie Dory in 5th. Matthew Jordan takes his first podium of the season in prime 3rd there in a brilliant driving class. 6th overall ahead of Kieran Smart. Lee Horn takes 8th ahead of Nigel Stock and Matthew Sheraton. Alan McCain takes 11th ahead of Michael Lees, and the battle of Wyness versus Kurtler. Stuart Wyness will be your runner-up in the Prime Championship with that 8th place there in a round today where bad luck has struck him so many times. I think surely he's got to have some good luck at some point. Fraser Ostens was 15th, 10th in Pro-Am, with Lewis Mason crawling to line here, but he will make it there as Mark Hughes tries to go around the outside of him. Hughes will take the place off him right at the end, and Mark Hughes will take 11th place in Prime, 16th overall, and Lewis Mason will be the last of your finishers, 17th on the road. But when I enter the race in the end, drama everywhere we looked, and I think we need to take a look back at some of that drama right towards the end of the race, and in particular what happened right at the finish line to our drivers and none other than Matthew Sheraton and Jamie Dory and Nick Clibbens all getting caught up in a number of incidents, but Dory and Clibbens was the big one, and here's the replay to explain. So making the way on down the round, and what you'll see here, look at Isaac on the left. He suddenly makes it 3 wide, and well, that catches out Nick Clibbens, who has to drift onto the path of Jamie Dory, who's on the outside, and I don't think Clibbens knew where to go, but unfortunately for Jamie Dory, that cost him all the momentum. Behind, whereas he rejoined, well then we saw him come right back onto the path of the Smart versus Matthew Jordan battle, and well, they had a brilliant run to line as our cameraman picked him up at that point, and we'll carry on with the Jordan Smart battle to the finish here in terms of the replay. And well, Matthew Jordan with a double toe here thanks to Jamie Dory, and also Kieran Smart getting it wrong coming out the final quarter, misanticipating the amount of understeer in the dirty air that enabled Matthew Jordan just to sneak the place away. And well, a bit of drive for Stuart Wyness right at the end. This is what happened to the Track Scotland driver, collected there with Matthew Sheraton. Well, it's only gone from good to bad to worse to nightmare there, and well, they made the way up the hill, and well, for Stuart Wyness, the car not coming back together as much as he would like. Well, commiserations to him, but as all drivers celebrate on the start-finish line and they kick up the dust clouds there, and Jack Pitters lead in the celebrations with the donuts. Let's take a look at those race results subject to any steward's inquiries, ladies and gentlemen, of which there may be a few. Jack Pitters then taking a victory overall and in Pro by 7 seconds at the line over Toby Cole. The privateer in the end having to settle for 2nd, but most importantly for him, taking Pro-Am victory, and well done to the 256 driver with a phenomenal drive there and steering clear of all the danger. Double Sim Racers Isaac Doble took 3rd overall, 2nd in Pro, ahead of your Prime provisional champion for this season, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Clibbens for that 4th place overall and a 2nd place in class. It confirms he is your provisional Prime champion for iRacing Esports. Well done to Nick. In 5th, it was Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Racing, who in the end survived the tussle between himself and Nick Clibbens at the end, with Matthew Jordan in 6th place, the privateer, rounding off the Prime podium. Kieran Smart was 7th for Track Scotland, and a very frustrated day today for Track Scotland by all accounts, ahead of Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing, and then Nigel Stock for Crest Autosport, holding on to 9th ahead of Matthew Sheraton by 4 seconds. The Aztec Racing driver had his altercation towards the close of Stuart Wyness, but he came out on top of that, and best rest of the length was Alan McCain for iRacing Esports. 12th, we saw JWM's Michael East once again find himself in the thick of the battles, but couldn't quite move forward, with 13th going to Stuart Wyness, the run-up in the Pro-Am Championship when it was said and done for Track Scotland, with William Kirtler and Fraser Ostens for Aztec Racing and NXTGEN Racing respectively, completing the overall top 15. Mark Hughes and Lewis Mason completed the overall finishing order, and we did have unfortunately retirements and thereby non-finishes for Sam Smith, Carl Thompson, Wayne Douglas, and also there to add to the woes, we did have Duncan Rye, Ben Altrier, and Phil McDougall. So a high rate of attrition in this one, ladies and gents. So we may have had 23 starters, but in the end only 17 finishers, and that brings all of our racing to a close for this season of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup. But of course, this doesn't quite bring our broadcast to a close, because coming up in approximately 7 to 8 minutes time will be our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers and also hopefully our champions, our provisional champions at that. And we'll be back for those as quickly as we can be, ladies and gentlemen. So don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. We will see you very shortly for our post-round interviews. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews, and we're going to be kicking off by speaking to our two Drivers' Championship winners. And we have to, as always, as per tradition, start off with our overall Drivers' Champion, and for Season 3, provisionally, it is Adam Delmont, who has joined me on holiday right now. And as he joins me now, firstly, Adam, allow me to lead the congratulations to you. You've finally taken your first ever NXTGEN title. If you can hear me, Adam.
Hello?
Adam, you with us?
Yes. Sorry, Paul. I'm on my phone in a Welsh campsite.
No worries at all. No worries at all. I was just saying there, allow me to lead the congratulations to you taking your first ever NXTGEN Racing overall title. I mean, it's been years, but it's finally happened. How does it feel?
It feels good, mate. It's finally happened. And I wasn't even there.
Oh, goodness me. Well, to be fair, you did all the hard work over the distance of the season. I mean, championships are won on 9 rounds in this instance, not 1. But were you worried that tonight, even with a 77-point lead, that Kieran Sharp could take it away from you?
Yes. Obviously, I even thought about trying to get hold of a laptop and a controller just to show up and try and claim some sort of points, because I know how quick Kieran is, and if anybody can get 3 wins in a night, it'd have been Kieran. So I was a bit nervous, mate. And then when I finally got some service and could have a bit of a catch up on what was going on, I'd seen that in the comments that he'd got second and then another second, and then literally didn't make the grid for race 3. So I kind of at that moment thought, yeah, that's got to be it. He can't do it now. So, yay.
Oh, goodness me. Well, definitely a bit of a nerve-wracking one until the race restart, no doubt about it. But it's finally happened after all these times. And looking back over the season, I mean, you've had some incredible performances. Although, I must admit, for a champion, you've sort of stumbled your way to this one a little bit, because early season, phenomenal, particularly at Snetterton. We'll always remember that for the run of wins. But midway through the season, it was almost as if it was your championship to lose, and you're making a point to try to lose it.
Yeah, I seem to just have it was a couple of weeks on it, like mid-ish season, maybe just after halfway point, and yeah, if it could go wrong, it wanted to go wrong. Not quite sure what was really going on. I don't think I was driving at my best either. But I think we went back to TCR, didn't we? And I had a week off and did the TCR, and then came back and had a really, really good performance. What was it, the second to last round? Yeah, where I pretty much got the 2 overall wins and the second, but the class win in the middle race. And I think that gave me enough for this week, because I was like, it dawned on me. I thought, I'm not even going to be at the final. I'm on holiday. No, I'm going to lose another championship through something stupid.
Well, you definitely didn't lose it. And like you said, that phenomenal run last time out to Oulton Park with 2 wins and a second place overall, and the class win for running in race number 2. I mean, that put all the questions about your title campaign primarily to bed. You just needed it to become a formality. But it's happened. And when you look back at this season, I mean, beyond the race at Oulton Park, are there any other highlights that stand out?
Snetterton, obviously that was a really good round. Also the race with Andrew Pike. I think that was Snetterton as well, but that final race with Pike was really good. And to be honest, I've enjoyed the whole season. I love the Legends. I think they're great cars, and I can't wait for the next season. Hopefully there will be one.
Oh, well, we haven't got anything that we're going to officially announce on the broadcast tonight, but I believe there's something in the background. There's more news to come in the coming months. We'll keep you apprised of that. But what's next for yourself? Now that you've got 1 crown, you've mentioned there you'd love to be back to defend the title in the Legends machines, but is this going to open up the floodgates potentially for more crowns in the NXTGEN Racing?
I'm hoping so, mate. I mean, I think this season's TCR is out of reach. I've had another bit of a poor run in the TCRs. I've had some really good pace and some really good races, but I think overall my performances, especially early on this season in TCR, getting myself into a bit of trouble with penalties and just making a few mistakes that cost me. I've had a few races, I've had a race win taken away through a penalty, so I've dropped a bit off. So this season I'm just gonna, try and get what I can, but at least the pressure's off. I've got nothing to lose anymore in the TTR. I can still fight for third, potentially, third or fourth. So, it'll just be all guns blazing in TCR. Finish that off and then obviously wait on next gen announcements to see what following championships we've got, and I'll be there ready to sign up.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to you giving it your all in the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 9 as that heads towards its conclusion, and of course to see you back on the grid in the coming season ahead of racing here at Next Gen. But with that, Adam, just before we do let you go and let you enjoy your holiday and your champion status, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to for the final time this season?
Yeah, as always, mate, yourself firstly for the incredible broadcasts. I always enjoy watching them back. Jamie, the whole Next Gen admin team for, putting up with us and, running it all and sacrificing a lot of their time for us lot. The drivers, because, without them, there wouldn't be one no matter what anybody did. And, some of the races I've had this season have been incredible. So, big thanks to them and all the lads at Next Gen Green and all our associated sponsors.
Well, Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me throughout the season for interviews, whether it be before or after the races. You've been an absolute star, there's no doubt about it. And for you to find the time whilst on a holiday to come and join us for a quick interview as well, it's absolutely lovely of you. Congratulations, my friend, on taking your first Next Gen Racing Overall Drivers' Championship crown. It's been long overdue, but it's finally happened here in Season 3 of the Legends Cup. Enjoy it. Savour it, have a great rest of your holiday, and we will see you back on the grid in the Touring Car Series in the weeks ahead.
Cheers, Paul. I'm going to go and have a celebratory vodka and coke now. Thank you.
Fantastic. Enjoy it on us.
Cheers, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Adam Delmont, the Next Gen Green driver, who in the end has had an incredible end to the season, albeit mentioned there the fact that a little bit nervous for the simple reason, worried about the fact not being able to be on the grid to seal the deal. Not only had 77 points, he had plenty of points in his pocket. However, there's always that niggling doubt, particularly when your main rival is the Mini Cup champion of Kieran Sharp from 10 months ago, who really has come on strong at certain rounds over the season, and particularly Cadwell Park perhaps being the most staggering one, where Kieran Sharp was the second faster than everybody, including Adam Delmont, if not more so. But Adam really showed his craft this season, and the consistency as well, kept his head out of trouble and let the trouble find others, and with his pace, particularly at Oulton Park last time out, ran away with proceedings there enough to be able to stay ahead and give himself the comfort he needed, that Kieran Sharp needed a perfect day today. And whilst races 1 and 2 went well for the Sim Racing Collective driver, not being able to make it to the grid for race number 3 meant that for Kieran Sharp it was a relegation to second place at the end, and Adam Delmont finally has a fairy tale ending to a season of racing, which is he finally takes that overall Drivers' Champion crown. But then coming on to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, we've just heard from our first. We're going to be having a chat very shortly to Nick Clibbens, our Pro-Am champion, and a very, very similar story in the way that he's had his back and forth battle between what is himself and the Track Scotland pair of Stuart Wyness and also Kieran Sharp. But let's hear from the man rather than regale his tale, and he joins me now. Good evening to you, Nick. And well, you've done it. You've taken provisionally the Pro-Am Drivers' Championship crown. How does it feel to be our Season 3 Pro-Am champion?
Evening, Paul. Yeah, great. It's the first championship I won with Next Gen, so I've finally done it.
Oh,
brilliant.
Well, it has been a long campaign. I can hear the relief in your voice already to have finally done it and finally taken your maiden crown in the Next Gen Racing Series, much like Adam Delmont, funnily enough, and both of you have been on the grid for similar amounts of time here. There's a real good theme of similarities going on today, I've got to say. But Let's talk a little bit about your rivals, firstly, and how it's been a long season between the three of you. I mean, you've had the competition from Track Scotland's Stuart Wyness and also Kieran Sharp from literally day one. What's it like dealing with that pressure, not just from two other drivers, but two teammates who have the luxury of they can work together, whereas you're in a bit of a solo effort, even though you have teammates on the grid?
Yeah, tough contenders. They've done amazing. Like, they kept me on my toes the whole season. Always pushing. I'm always having to look at my relatives, seeing where they are, hoping I can outscore them. But it's just, yeah, they're mega. They've definitely kept me on my toes.
Well, they kept you on your toes and kept you honest. But now, coming on to your performances, particularly coming into this round. Now, Oulton Park, of course, a very odd round because a phenomenal class victory in race number 1, but then a 7th in race number 2 and a 4th in race 3. But luck went your way to the fact that your rivals finished behind you in races 2 and 3, despite it all. And would you say a bit of luck's been with you this season? Because it seems as though, as well as your pace, every time you've had a bad day, your rivals have had a worse one.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I've done there. I've obviously flipped the coin right because, yeah, Oulton Park was, for me, I love the track. It's one of my favourite tracks, but I seem to get caught up in carnage wherever I go. Maybe it's just been a bit greedy, trying to go down the inside here and there. It just didn't go the right way, but same for Stuart and Kieran. I think they had similar things. They're all battling for that title. You just push that a little bit harder because you want to be on top. And yeah, mistakes happen, unfortunately, but it was just one of them.
Well, may have been misfortune for them as much as it was yourself, but like you say, when you're all chasing that glory, mistakes will happen. But as for tonight, let's not make any mistake. You really were a force to be reckoned with here at Brands Hatch. In qualifying, a 2nd place, just missing out on pole position by 700ths at the close. And in 2 out of 3 wins, a 2nd place in class in race number 3. I mean, perhaps the perfect recipe to wrap up the season.
Yeah, it was just head down, push for the front, hope for the best, and yeah, race 3 was I got into the side of Isaac, which apologies Isaac, and I see Stuart get caught up in that as well. So I was like, I kind of felt a little bit bad because I kind of caused it all, but same respect, I was just trying to push forward. It's a draft track, so I was expecting him to come back, but yeah, Isaac come back along, but I'm not sure what happened to Stuart in the end. But yeah, I was hoping it wasn't too bad for him.
Well, definitely a bit of woe for Stuart Wyness. Further instance followed him in race number 3 and sent him down. But talking about the earlier races, and of course, following that qualifying session, we just missed out on pole versus Kieran Sharp by 700ths. In race 1, a very solid effort from yourself as all the pros came charging through. You seem to be the one to keep your head best and fend them off. But surely, is there a bit of difficulty, or have you had difficulty in the races? So, of course, you're clearly wanting to chase an overall podium, if not an overall win, but you've got to keep the Pro-Am Championship well and truly in your mind.
Yeah, definitely. I've always want to go for an overall win, but it's kind of not my championship in the way for the overall win. But you never want to turn it down, but you just think of the points in the Pro-Am side, keep your head down, try and win the Pro-Am if you can, and then last lap, if you can, go for an overall win. But it's a risky one. Like, you don't want to take anyone out. You don't want to be losing out yourself. It's a difficult one.
Well, a difficult one, but you seem to find a good balance today, no doubt about it. Although, with regards to race number 2 as well, we saw you right up there over the race distance as well. I do have to ask, did that feel as though perhaps it was a little bit of a missed opportunity because the top 3 of pros were all fighting so hard? And I think in the end, you must have been a bit gutted at the fact that it was more about playing rearguard actions the rest of the Pro-Ams at the end of it.
It was, yeah. I was trying to get around the outside of Kieran for that last corner, but it kind of had the iRacing netcodey thing where you get stuck together, and I come worse off on that one. But yeah, I was trying to go for that win. Then Pitas got away a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm trying to go for 2nd now, but yeah, it didn't quite work, so I settled for 4th at the end.
Well, fair play to you. And as for race number 3, you mentioned earlier the fact the absolute chaos, but somehow you got away with it, and appreciate you apologising in regards to the contact between yourself and Isaac. But come the final checker flag, I mean, at what point did you feel as though, right, I've got this done, the championship is mine?
I won't really think about it, to be fair. I was trying to chase the front, literally trying to go for the front. I kind of thought, I've at least got it in the bag because I've outscored all night. But you never know what happens, and all it takes is for just losing it on that last corner, going to the back of the grid, lose a ton of points. I kind of had it in my head. I've mostly done it, but then at the same respect, you don't know until you cross the line, really, is it?
Oh, 100%. You don't know until you see that checkered flag and the results are confirmed, like you say. But in the end, Nick, you've done it. And now I have to ask, what's next for yourself? I mean, we know that you're on the touring car grid on a regular basis, trying to chase glory there. But have you got any other sim racing planned in the near future?
Well, hopefully Legends again, if it happens again, because absolutely love them. Brilliant cars. Obviously touring cars. Slowly getting to grips with them again. And MX5 Championship, which hopefully starts soon. So, apart from them three, that's what I kind of enjoy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, good mix of machines there, and that's what we like to hear. We'd love to see you back on the grid to defend your title if you remain in Prime, or I suspect you might be promoted to Pro for Season 4 of the NXTGEN Legends Cup when it does come around, but we'll wait and see. But in the meantime, we'll look forward to seeing you on the grid in the Touring Car Championship and also in the MX-5s. But just before I do let you go, Nick, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yourself for doing amazing broadcast every week. And obviously the NXTGEN guys, obviously sorting all this out because it's amazing. And obviously teammates, they've helped me through with all this, giving places up if they needed to, just to help me at the front. It's, big team effort, really.
Oh, and did a big team effort from your colleagues, Alan and Sam. And, well, it's always great to see the three of you out there for iRacing Esports. But with that, Nick, we need to say a big thank you to you for joining me in the interview room this evening for an interview to celebrate your provisional Prime Drivers' Championship status. Well done on your first ever NXTGEN crown. We look forward to the prospect of plenty more to come. Indeed, could this be the opportunity for floodgates to open? We will see. But until then, my friend, savour the moment, enjoy it, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Nick Clibbens, a very happy and relieved Pro-Am Provisional Drivers Champion. You can hear it in his voice, the fact he's finally done it. And well, what a way to do it today, to be fair. 2 out of 3 class wins, and the other result being a second, albeit race number 3, as he mentioned there, a bit of drama, particularly as the race went deeper and deeper. But he went all in, wanting to chase overall glory as much as he did Pro-Am glory. And in the end for Nick, well, it was all about trying to manage the race distance and keeping mind he's got a championship to win, and well, that was at the forefront of his mind. And this season really has been a season, as he mentioned there, whenever he's had bad luck, his rivals have had bad luck to follow him, but otherwise he has been kept honest with the Track Scotland pair of Stuart Wyness and Kieran Sharp. It's great to hear him say that, because the three have really been a formidable combination all the way over the season. But Nick has just had the edge when it's mattered most, whether it be in luck or pace, by the smallest of margins on average, and that really has been the differentiator between them. But he's looking forward to a future season of NXTGEN Legends, although I suspect he will be in the Pro class there when he does return to the grid for that. Given the fact he is now Pro-Am Drivers Champion, it's only fair he does go up. But at the same time as well, in the meantime, looking forward to more touring car racing and racing MX-5s. The future is looking bright for the iRacing Esports number 13. But with that, ladies and gents, we now come to our final interview of the evening, and we are going to be coming to none other than Matthew Sheraton as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, and we are going to hear the story of the Pro Class driver who today, well, he was here to have fun, and he definitely did so in taking a win in race number 2, as he does join me now. Well, Matthew, we talked earlier, and we talked once again, and, well, you made it happen in race number 2, no doubt about it, but with a win in one race, a 6th in the other, and a 5th in the final, a positive night in the end, and plenty of fun had?
Yeah, definitely. I think first of all, I say I'm glad I'm going last in this interview, because I genuinely, it's all been a bit of a blur, and I genuinely forgot half of the stuff I did, so I've had to go back on the broadcast and just re-watch all the bits I did. So, but overall, yeah, we got what I said I wanted to get, and one better. I mean, good racing, good scraps, and then, well, I said I wanted a podium, and I did get it, but it was the top step. So, yeah, that's even better night than I can think of.
Oh, 100%. Although, starting off the night, qualifying, I do have to ask, what went wrong there? 16th overall. Looks like it was a qualifying session where the pace was coming for everybody. but it took a long time for you to find some pace.
Oh, that's just, I'll be honest, that's just down to the draft. I sort of got left on my ones. I mean, I got quite lucky on the first run. I had a toe, and obviously I went straight to pole, and then I think dropped down to third. But then after that, I just sort of got unlucky. I was on my own. Even when I tried to tactically get myself onto the back of a train, it didn't work out. So, and the draft is powerful around here. Just any straight, you just gain so much time. So yeah, I was just barely no mates, and obviously that has a huge effect. So yeah, down in 16th, but I've had that before, and usually I find myself at least gaining a good few spots. So it just makes it more fun for me.
All very true. I mean, if you ever qualify poorly, we do know that we can always expect you to come charging through the field quite quickly. And race number 1, no exception there, up to 11th by the end of it after 10 laps of racing. But along the way to taking that 11th place, looks like there were a lot of ding-dong battles for yourself.
Yeah, we got caught out in lap 1. Unfortunately, got sort of junked. I mean, yeah, I saw the accident coming up at the top of Dingledale. There was, I think it was a Mountain Dew car, and I saw him spinning, so I was like, all right, I'll avoid you. Then once he sort of fully span, he revealed another car, who then obviously sort of came onto my path and knocked me up on 2 wheels, jettisoned me out to the sides, and I hit another car, and then I think I hit another car after that. I think I hit a few cars, to say the least, and then, yeah, by the end of it, car was a bit knackered and got a meatball, had to tow it back to the pits, and then luckily, you know, we had a safety car, so I was able to catch back up. Obviously, I was at the back, but then once the lights went green, it was more just overtake mode on and see how far we can get up. And obviously, like I say, we were, I think it was 11th and wherever in class. So yeah, it was a bit of an uncomfortable race, but you know, still had fun along the way.
Well, you had fun in that one. And then race number 2, of course, starting, in fact, not too far away from where you would have started if we had been able to do the top 15 at reverse grid. A win in that one, but to be fair, you were not left alone over the race distance. I mean, race number 2 must have felt as though it was absolutely on edge all the way.
Yeah, well, we got lucky to start with. Like I said, I think we were supposed to be 4th or 3rd, whichever, because of obviously iRacing wants to throw a wobbly tonight, ended up 2nd. So, you know, got a bit lucky there, but you take what you get in racing, and so I wasn't complaining. Although I sat there and I thought, well, Isaac's next to me. He's crazy quick. He's just going to blitz everyone and go. That wasn't the case. I jumped everyone quite well. Got to the front. Well, Isaac started racing straight away, which, I'll be honest, threw me off guard. I was expecting him to tactically wait me out until the back straight, and then no, he got stuck in straight away. So that was a good bit of fun. And then I think come lap 2, he went a bit wide, got on the grass. I got him, but then Jack got me as well. So I really didn't go anywhere. And then at that point, we saw we were going quicker. Strategy was just to push him, take the rest out of the equation, and then, you know, come by lap 9, 10, then start throwing some moves to hit the lead and then get the win. But no, the safety car got called and buggered that one up. So yeah, it was a new strategy, and then I got, like I hit the front again, and then unfortunately this time it wasn't one car just keeping me company. It was about 4 or 5 at a time, which well, they're all good races, so I know to give me space. However, it is rather stressful. I think I might have held my breath for the last 2 laps. I'm not too sure, but no, it was good. Like I say, we just sort of, it was good. It was great racing. You know, three wide at times, space always given. You know, we played a few tricks in the last couple of laps. Like I say, I just sort of positioned the car perfectly. We just sort of bottlenecked them, so they end up 2nd and 3rd, and then side by side going through certain corners, slowing them up. 3rd and 4th, then maybe the 4th getting involved and slowing them even more up, and then come the last couple of corners, we had just enough of a gap to get to the line ahead of everyone else. I was a little bit worried because I was sitting there thinking, the slipstreams, he's going to get me, have I got enough? Just about had enough, so that was great. And then, yeah, win, and well, I think I left quite a few tyre marks on the start-finish line after that.
Oh, most definitely you did. We saw you enjoying the donuts there to celebrate your victory in race number 2. And Unfortunately, race number 3, not quite able to repeat the success of race number 2, but to give credit where it's due to you, I mean, starting quite some way down the order, very quickly I was starting to carve your way through, but a few bumps towards the end, just upsetting that progress.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, due to iRacing problems, we had to do a one-lap qualifying, and just my topsy-turvy luck, my PC crashed as we were going into qualifying, so it's just overheating problems. It's been doing it all night, but yeah, so we didn't get to qualify, so we had to start, well, at the back. Luckily I was sort of the first of the non-qualifiers, so that made life a little bit easier. But yeah, it was just another case of going back through the pack. I tried to work with a couple of people. I mean, I think I think I caught the back of 3 cars, tried to work. However, I was sort of looking at the gaps, and we were just slowing each other up more than we were gaining the rest. So I sort of went, this is nice, lads, but I kind of want to get on a bit more. Well, I didn't throw the dive bomb. It sort of accidentally happened. I wanted to overtake, however, I suddenly realised the car wasn't slowing down enough and ended up causing a bit of a heavy dive bomb, which my bad. But then that sorted itself out. I worked with Jamie, I worked with Lee. We tried to get a 3-man train going to try and catch the leaders. It worked at times, didn't work at others, and then, like I say, I think we were slowing each other up, and then more joined in, and then unfortunately we just got tagged. I think we got tagged at turn 1 on one lap, and then got tagged at 2 on the next. So yeah, it was not the progress. So then I think there was Stuart and there was my teammate Will. So at that point I was like, can I just beat both of them and get, I think it was 10th, and well we did. And granted, it was got a bit hairy, got a bit rough, but you know, we got the spots, and once again it was just good fun, good racing, and to do it obviously Brand's home track, it's even better.
Oh, 100%. It looked as though, despite the difficulties, you had some fun out there in race number 3, which it's all about to add to your results from races 1 and 2. But with that and the season now to close, of course, we do have you racing in the Touring Car Series, which continues towards the end of its 9th season. But what's next from yourself? Can we expect you back on the grid should the Legends return in the future?
If I've got the time for it, then yeah, absolutely. I think it's been good fun. I mean, I know I've got new things starting for me. Obviously, I'm moving a completely different place to start college or whatever at the Silverstone campus. So I'm having to move from southeast up to about Milton Keynes. So new flat, new sort of education, probably new job as well. So new things. But if there's time for it, I'll happily join. I've gone into this never caring about the championship, never caring about points, just wanting to have a good race, maybe a bit of a breather from maybe the touring cars or the GT3s, and yeah, it's just been great fun. And obviously adding to the fun, designing myself the 2 cars liveries, both Mayer and McQueen. That was great fun, and to be fair, I think the train paints community has enjoyed the Lightning McQueen paint job. That's gone quite well. But yeah, if it comes back, I will happily join. But as of right now, yeah, we've got an outright touring car championship to win. That's going pretty strongly. I've got a few numbers I've racked in my head over the past week since Knock Hill, and if it all goes well, it should be something interesting. And then I'm also down for the new GT3 season, and you know, I'm not sure of my class yet, but if we're back in silver, then another shot at that title. I just about missed out by, I think, about 5 points last season, so gutted for that. But yeah, so hopefully there's a new chance for more championships.
Oh, well, definitely plenty of opportunities to come by the sounds of things. And whilst things might be nearing their conclusion for you in the Blue Lobby's overall championship in the NXTCC, which we'll have to wait and see whether you can wrap that up as of next week. Like you say, with the GT3 championship back around the corner, there could be glory to be had there. And we look forward to seeing you chase it no matter what comes. But Matt, just before I do let you go, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, shout out to the team and to our dear sponsors, Claremont Consulting and RSO Sport Classic, for their continued support. Thank you to my adoring fans that are, well, my family. Always just watching and cheering me on if I do something good, do something bad, or do something completely stupid. It's usually one of the three. And then, yeah, just a big thanks to yourself for always a great broadcast, and to the admin team, Jamie, Lee, Martin, and whoever for putting this on, and just allowing us to sort of chill out on a Tuesday night and have a bit of have some good fun racing.
Well, Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the grid this season, no doubt about it. And a big thank you to you for joining me for an interview this evening. It's always a pleasure to hear from you, and well done on your results today, particularly that win in race number 2. As you mentioned, if you're going to go for a podium, what better way to do it than take to the very top step, and a fetching livery at that as well. Some beautiful craftsmanship there. We look forward to seeing you on the grid next week in the NXTCC, chasing the championship, and back on the GT3 grid in the near future. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening, and thank you once again.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
So, hearing there from Matthew Sheraton, ladies and gentlemen, our final interview of the evening. And the Aztec Racing Drive, they're really talking about the enjoyment factor over the season, including tonight, and turning up just to have some fun and to really just take it nice and easy compared to the other championships he races in at Next Gen, where the focus and the tension is a little bit higher and is a little bit more title based. But with regards to tonight, well, qualifying 16th didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to, because he couldn't find somebody to work with in terms of the slipstream. But in the races, that's where he normally goes, and goes elbows out with it, and he enjoyed an absolutely brilliant run in all 3 of them, albeit race number 1 curtailed a little bit by the opening lap altercation, but a safety car helping bunch the field up and giving him a second lease of life. In race number 2, well, that worked out brilliantly for him, starting on the front row, but still we had pressure on him all the way through, but timed it right at the close in order to take the win. And in race number 3, after all the fun in the early stages, the mid to late portion of the race, seeing a couple of big incidents, send him all the way down the order. Well, for Matthew Sheraton, it wasn't quite the result he wanted to end the season on, but he's definitely had a round to be proud of there, and in a car, very fetching Lightning McQueen livery at that. Well, I don't think he can complain too much, and we've loved to see what he's done over this season. And if he's on the grid for another season, if he's able to commit to it, I wouldn't be surprised if we could see him potentially chasing down an overall championship crown, because he shows a lot of promise, Matthew Sheraton. He's just got to iron out the kinks, and well, if I think he does, he could one day become a Legends Cup champion, or at least title contender. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, a big thank you to our interviewees today, and there's their names on screen. Of course, we just heard from Matthew Sheraton from Aztec Racing, the Pro Class. Big thank you to him, and a big thank you to our provisional champions who we heard from earlier on this evening, including Adam Delmont, our overall Drivers' Champion for Next Gen Green, and Nick Clibbens, iRacing Esports, your Prime Drivers' Champion. A big well done to all 3 of our drivers for their performances today over the course of the season, and a thank you to them, and also all the drivers who have joined us for interviews over the entirety of the season campaign, where it's been post-round or between races. They've all been absolute stars, and it's been a pleasure to talk to them all. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, if you're sat right there right now twitching to be on the grid, well, we do recommend you check out our official website, and that's at nextgenracing.co.uk, and our website appears on screen now. And while the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, there's never been a better time to come join us here at the Next Gen Racing community. Whether you're a rookie or a fully fledged esports professional, there's a home for you here on the grid at Next Gen Racing, and you can find out all the latest information regarding our series and our schedule here on the website. And also, you can get to the beating heart of the community, which is at the official Discord. But if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, you can, of course, go to our Facebook group, and that's at facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. Well, there you can find out similar information to what's on our website, but also a little bit more about the guys and girls behind the scenes that make up the Next Gen Racing staff and admin team, and also a little bit about what they do not just on the virtual circuit, but also the real-life racing circuit, with several of our staff members being track marshals, admins, alternatively real-life racing drivers. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors, who do include PowerMaxed, Next Level Racing, Mark Sykes Designs, Joyce Design, Douglas Motorsport, Sam Cases UK, Falconer PC Builds and Support, Benji Sim Photos, and of course our title sponsor for this season, Doble Motorcycles. A huge thank you to them. And indeed, if you want to invest in what would be a machine on 2 wheels or 4 wheels if it's an ATV powered by the power of dreams, we'll look no further than the United Kingdom's premier Honda motorcycle dealer, that is Doble Motorcycles. Their web address, doble.co.uk. Go there today and you won't be disappointed. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, sadly, that is the conclusion of Season 3 of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup on iRacing. But don't worry, stay tuned for plenty more racing action at NXTGEN Racing for the remainder of 2025, because we've got more to come, including on Tuesdays, of course, the conclusion of the NXTCC Season 9, which does have 3 rounds remaining and will see us all the way through into September. And also, as Matthew Sheraton alluded to only moments ago, we do have the return of the GT3 Championship in only a couple of weeks' time, so there's still plenty more to tune into here at NXTGEN Racing. Whether you want to be on the grid or just tuning in, watching from the grandstands, either way, there's still plenty over the course of 2025, and our plans are very firmly underway for 2026, and with it, the entire year ahead. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today. We have been NXTGEN Racing, and I have been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, until the next season of the NXTGEN Racing Legends Cup, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and much like our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, that's all from us here at NXTGEN Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all.